bans cell phones in schools, and much more.
I'm Marjorie Egan. If you have a question of your own for the Attorney General, now's your chance to get it answered. The number to reach her directly, call or text 877-301-8970. Or, if you're near Copley Square, come down and ask her a question in person. That's Ask the AG, next 11 o'clock hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. Texas officials are giving an update any moment. It's day 6 of the massive search for flood victims. 161 people are known to be missing in the Kerr County area. Brian Trasher is vice president of the United Cajun Navy, a volunteer-based group helping with the search. He spoke with NPR's All Things Considered.
When you get past the 48 to 60 hour mark, the survivability index really goes down a lot. We always hold out hope for a miracle. But, sometimes, and our K-9 team has had 11 hits now, 11 recoveries since they've been here. Sometimes just bringing someone's loved one home so they can bury him, observe their religious customs, brings closure.
The state death toll has surpassed 100. President Trump plans to visit Texas on Friday. Monsoon rains triggered flash flooding in New Mexico. 3 people were killed in the village of Ruidoso yesterday. A man and 2 children got swept up in rushing floodwaters. Heavy rain fell on burned areas from last year's wildfires, and officials say the Rio Ruidoso rose 20 feet. U.S. copper prices jumped to an all-time high after President Trump threatened new 50% tariffs on imports of the metal. As NPR's Maria Aspen reports, copper futures fell back a little overnight, but they're still trading near their record high.
Copper is a crucial component for all kinds of American businesses and for consumers. It's used to manufacture everything from cars and smartphones to power grids and the data centers powering the artificial intelligence boom. The United States imports about half of its copper from countries including Chile and Canada. And it's been getting more expensive. U.S. manufacturers have spent this year buying copper and stockpiling supplies to get ahead of them. Now President Trump is threatening to add a 50% tax onto those imports. The new tariffs, combined with the president's taxes on steel and aluminum, are expected to boost costs for businesses. Maria Aspen, NPR News.
President Trump welcomes the leaders of 5 African countries to the White House today. They're in Washington for a 3-day summit centered around economic opportunities. NPR's Jewel Bright reports.
The 3-day summit with the African nations of Gabon, Liberia, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, and Mauritania starts with lunch at the White House and runs through Friday. The White House says the summit is in line with the Trump administration's pivot away from aid to economic cooperation with African nations. Experts say the administration is looking to counter China and Russia's growing influence in the region by striking lucrative mineral deals with African nations. This will be the first meeting between Trump and African leaders since South Africa's Oval Office meeting in May. For NPR News, I'm Drew Bright in Lagos.
This is NPR News in Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Department of Homeland Security has issued a subpoena to Harvard University today demanding documents related to alleged misconduct of international students and in schools' compliance with federal immigration law. The Crimson reports that the subpoena issued by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, calls on Harvard to produce records, communications, and other documents related to the enforcement of immigration laws that date back to January 2020. No word yet on if Harvard will comply. Lawmakers on Beacon Hill took another step towards advancing a bill that would ban cell phone use for students while school is in session. The bill is sponsored by State Senator Julian Sear and would require schools to ban the use of cell phones and other electronic devices from the first bell in the morning to the last bell, letting students out in the afternoon. Senate President Karen Spilka supports the bill, saying that the cell phone is one of the most distracting devices ever created. If this bill passes this session, it would take effect in the 2020 2026-2027 school year. And for the first and only time this season, the Inter Miami Football Club will come north tonight to Gillette Stadium and play the New England Revolution. Fans interested in seeing Lionel Messi, the Argentinian superstar in Foxborough, do have their chance. The match is scheduled to start at 7:30, and at last check, tickets were still available at StubHub, SeatGeek, Ticketmaster, and Vivid Seats. The only other time this season the clubs will meet is on October 4th down at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Here's your bride. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio on GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you. Before we start the show, little programming note here, a couple of them, Jim. The Attorney General is on her way to take our questions and yours. She'll be here in a few minutes, delayed in a little bit of traffic. Another note, you and I sat down with former Meet the Press host Chuck Todd for his Toddcast the other day.
Pretty great.
And we had a long conversation among the three of us about journalism and democracy and politics. It is on there today if you want to listen. The ChuckToddcast.com. That's the ChuckToddcast.com. You can also see it at youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast or wherever you get your podcast. I haven't listened to it yet, but
It was fun. It was
I'm
a lot
looking
of
forward
fun.
to it this afternoon. It was great fun talking to him. You're right.
So, hi, Marjorie. While we wait for the Attorney General, as Marjorie said, she's stuck in traffic. She'll be here in a couple of minutes, we're told. We're opening the phone and text lines at 877-301-8970 on a topic we'll be bringing up with the Attorney General, cell phones in schools, or maybe more appropriately, no cell phones in schools. A statewide ban on student cell phones is inching forward on Beacon Hill as the state Senate Legislative Committee voted to advance the bill. There's similar bans in more than a dozen states, several local bans in schools across the state, places from Brockton to Worcester to Springfield, those sort of things. The Attorney General has proposed something called the Study Act. Included in that, there are many provisions we'll mention with her, is a bell-to-bell restriction on cell phones and personal electronic devices during school hours. The chief legislative sponsor is Senator Sear. And we want to know, in the few minutes we have until the Attorney General arrives, do you support this? We've discussed this in the past with listeners. And the only argument, Marjorie, I've ever heard against this is from a parent saying, I need to be able to get to my kid, which gives me hives, I have to say. And the theory being, if there's some horrible tragedy, you want to talk to your kid. And I would argue, if there's ever a time you don't want to talk to your kid and you want your kid's attention to be 100% focused on the adult in the room, it's if there's a catastrophe. Other than that, my understanding is provision in this bill that says each district or each city or town has to work out some regulations around how you can get information to your kid should you need to do it during the school day. But to say that I am 100% behind this bell-to-bell ban is an understatement. What do you think about it?
I am 100% behind it, too. We should mention, obviously, there's a story this week about people not being able to get in touch with anybody because there were no cell phone service. That's the horrible situation out in Texas with the Mystic camp where there was no cell phone service. But that, obviously, is not the situation we're talking about here at all. This is about kids being on cell phones all day long, being on social media all day long.
Totally distracted.
Sending text messages back and forth all day long. And it's not good for kids learning, obviously. It's not good for kids' mental health. We're learning more and more and more. And, if you need to get in touch with your child in an emergency situation, you can do what we did in the olden days, Jim. You call the principal's office and you let them know.
Please get them a note.
that there's a problem. So our number is 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. It has become so ubiquitous, the cell phone everywhere. You go out to dinner, people are on their cell phones. You go to somebody's house for dinner, they're on their cell phones.
You do a live radio show.
You do a live radio.
Cell phones,
well, that's because you're texting me. I have to have my phone here because I need to be on top of that.
Yes,
but I mean, this is a professional situation. It's not like a social situation, so it's kind of sad.
It's not that professional. Are we talking about us?
It's not really that professional, I guess.
Exactly. Okay, whatever. 877-301-8970.
Chuck Todd thought we were professionals. He interviewed us.
Well, that's what he said. said.
changed his mind by midway through.
Probably edited the thing down to 5 minutes. It was an hour event. So we want to know, particularly, anybody can call, but particularly if you have a kid in school in K through 12 now, how do you feel about a bell-to-bell ban of cell phones in your kid's school? You know, one of the things that drives me nuts about this is, you know, it's great that this is finally moving at snail-like speed in the legislature. What did I say? Like a dozen other states have this. What were we praising them for yesterday? That only 26...
Oh, they got rid of the broker's fees.
Right, which like 26 other states have already done. It'd be really nice if we led on something or other here.
We move cautiously. We move cautiously on Beacon Hill. And
you know what's another great thing? Just to get this out of my system, while the Senate president has voiced their support for this, which is good, the Speaker of the House, who's a former teacher, I don't know if you know that, is
Mariano's a former teacher?
Because of this arrogant crap that these leaders engage in, he can't tell the public where he is on this issue quite yet. I assume because there's got to be a dramatic moment where he lets the world know what he is. Wouldn't it be good if he said, here's where I am today. I'm willing to be persuaded, or whatever the hell it is. We want to know if you're persuaded. Let's start with Pat in Leominster as we wait for the AG. You're on BPR. Hi, Pat.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Excellent.
Hi, thanks.
What's up?
I got something to say about this as a former teacher.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, when I was a teacher, cell phones were not that big a deal.
Yeah.
But since then, they have, you know, every kid's got one, and I don't think you're ever going to get them away from them. Even if you ban them, they're still going to be sneaking them in. This is a great educational tool. Why not make use of it? Schools should be providing smartphones to students, and they should be making use of them in class. It's an incredible...
You know, Pat, I got to interrupt you. Your notion is that there, by the way, I did a panel at Endicott College a few months ago with some superintendents and principals who have done bans that were totally enforceable. But you're saying a ban isn't enforceable, but we should give them a phone to use and they're never going to do private stuff on it. I mean, really? It's ridiculous. The reality is they will figure out a way. Don't you want a leader, a teacher, a superintendent, a principal to say, here are the rules and we're going to enforce them. And if the kid is seen using his phone, I don't know, or her phone, I don't know what the penalty would be, but the individual districts will decide. There's some sanction against kids. So with all due respect, Pat, to you and your experience, let's give it a try. Thanks so much for the call. 877.
They can put them in those little containers.
Yeah.
And
what are they called? Yodels? What are those things called?
And you get them at the end. You get them at the end of the day. So I don't think it would be that hard to. They have to make sure that the phones are actually in there. But
well, it's at least easier than what Pat's talking about, is providing them with a phone to use for good purposes.
I mean, you don't need to provide them with a phone. They all have them.
Yeah.
I think most of them.
No, but we want to take them away during the day. And if there's an appropriate thing, if they have pads or they have computers, whatever. 877-301-8970. Let's go to Natasha in Framingham. The AG is here. She'll be with us in 1 minute. Natasha, that minute is yours. Go.
Okay. I feel like you're trying to solve this problem with a machete rather than a scalpel.
What's the scalpel?
And my reason for saying that is my child was involved in the false alarm that happened in Framingham, where nobody in the school knew that it was actually a false alarm. And she was barricaded in a closet in the section of the school where they thought the live shooter was and where the automatic system was going off, saying that there was a live shooter in their section of the building. And if she had not been able to text us from the back of that closet, telling us, like, she texted her entire family to say, if I die in the next few minutes, I want you to know that I love you. And I can't imagine what it would have been like for her not to be able to do that. I mean, as bad as the situation was afterwards for all of those kids that were barricaded, really needed to have therapy. If she hadn't been able to at least reach us and say that, I think it would have been far, far worse for
We understand.
her. And she always said she said afterwards that mattered.
Well, Natasha, that's the argument that lots of parents make, and it's certainly an understandable argument that you would like your child to get in touch with you. But I think what we're seeing, stepping back, is that the harm that's done far outweighs the the help that might be in the situation, because happily we're not yet at the state where every school in America is going to have a shooting incident or even a false alarm of a shooting incident, and the learning loss and the emotional problems and the mental health problems far outweigh it. So you know what I'm saying?
Well,
I
can
get
I
it.
be more unkind to, and Natasha, I hope you don't, I totally agree with everything Marjorie said, and the AG will weigh in 30 seconds. She just got here. But I would say, with all due respect, and it's hard to say it after your emotional call, I want your kid in the closet to be paying attention to the adult in that classroom rather than talking to you. And I know that sounds horrible, but that's what I think is the right thing. Natasha, thanks.
But her argument is the one that's made over and over
I know,
again by
and with
parents.
all due respect, it's wrong. In any case, even though respect, I'm sorry, I don't want to say that in front of the Attorney General.
It's
not wrong.
She couldn't believe you said
I disagree with it. The Attorney General, Andrea Joint Campbell, is now joining us. Hello, Attorney General. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank
Where
you.
were you stuck in traffic?
Sorry.
Mass Pike?
No, 93.
Oh, 93, okay.
Yeah.
Can't you do something but sue somebody? Can't you do something but that?
Okay, I can't.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yes, traffic. The
So-
bane of our existence.
So, Attorney General, I don't know if you heard that was a mother that was calling that was saying she was against, she thought this was going too far, that she wanted her child to have the ability, as apparently her poor kid did, during a false alarm of a shooting, to be able to
Framingham, yeah.
get in touch with the parents, text them or say that, she loved them and that kind of thing. And that's the argument you hear from parents all the time when we have these discussions. Now, you put together this bill, and you want cell phones to be pretty much banned in schools. So address what that mother just said and why you feel the way you do about getting rid of the cell
That's
phones.
right. So we heard that concern. We were very thoughtful. We engaged parents. We've engaged young people, even as a part of our office's new Youth Advisory Council. We now have a council informing the work that we do on behalf of young people, which doesn't often happen in government, various stakeholders, and we continue to engage folks. But the purpose of this bill is to address a couple of things. One is the mental health epidemic that we're seeing in Massachusetts, in this country. The uptick in anxiety, depression of our young people, that I think is the issue of the day. In addition to that, bullying and harassment also being used on these various devices in school to harm other kids. This is what we had to respond to. So the bill says we're going to ban cell phones within schools and frankly leave it to the adults to do public safety, not the kids. And further, educators are supporting us. Why? Because they don't want to be the cell phone police. They want a distraction-free environment to teach, and our kids should have a distraction-free environment in which to learn, while the adults do the public safety work and everything else. But we're not just banning cell phones. We also knew it was important that our litigation against TikTok and all this and various social media companies, so TikTok, Meta, Instagram, for the harms they are causing our young people in mental health, with respect to mental health, that takes years to get reforms through litigation. So we filed this legislation, the Study Act, to include accountability measures for social media companies. So when they say we're keeping your kids safe, well, age verification, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Infinite scrolling, they have designed these apps to keep our kids addicted. We want to hold them accountable to that, so the legislation also includes provisions there. And then lastly, it requires school districts to actually educate our kids on the benefits of social media platforms and then the harms, while we would look for ways to help fund this work with our school districts so they don't have to do it on their own. So it's comprehensive, because at the end of the day, to your point, Jim, and to others that we've engaged with, if we do not do something about these addictive devices with addictive platforms on those devices, 10 years from now, forget 10 years, maybe 1 year or 5 years from now, the uptick in depression, self-harm that we see amongst our kids will only get worse. They will not be able to learn in our classrooms, and the bullying and harassment that we're also seeing will also probably increase. And I don't know about anyone else. I'm a mom of 2 boys, not just AG. I would hope that we would want effective and impactful solutions, not surface level BS, to respond to what we're seeing for our kids.
I have one more follow-up question, but before we do, let me remind people, if you want to speak directly to the Attorney General, it's 877-301-8970, or if you're at the library and you want to speak to her face-to-face, Nia and our colleagues are sitting right over there. If you go over to them, tell them what your question is, there's a fairly good chance. My one follow-up, I'm unclear about the reporting on this. Your study acting is very comprehensive. It mentions a ton of things beyond the bell-to-bell ban. Is that what the Senate advanced, or was it narrowly the cell phone ban?
It was the cell phone ban.
Just this one piece.
This one piece, and they may have included some other exceptions we're reviewing, but we're still at it, pushing the Senate and others, because for me, when we put forth the legislation, yes, banning cell phones was one piece of it, but the social media platforms and accountability for those platforms, it can't be the parents that do it. It has to be them, the way they design it, is equally important. So we'll continue to work with them as well as the House on this.
Attorney General, one more thing on this. What is the active shooter argument? We're getting it on text messages now, and I think her name was Natasha, the mother that called, worried about what her little girl would have endured without being able to call her family. What is your answer to the active shooter concern?
That's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have folks even in my office. That's why we have trainings and protocols. God forbid something like that happens, for adults and others to follow and to allow their kids, one, to immediately, forget get on the phone, exit the building and hopefully engage their parents immediately, but protocols in place to keep our kids safe physically and then to get them to their loved ones. I think we can have both, but we cannot require and expect our kids to be doing public safety protocol, protecting their own mental health from social media companies, tasking teachers with enforcing cell phone policies in some school districts that have, some that don't. So we need consistency, but we also need a response that is effective. And I don't know any parent of any age probably at this point, and I have younger kids, where you're not concerned about the prevalence of technology and our kids walking down the street even on their phones, so addicted that it's having an effect on their mental health. And in order for us to address that, there are solutions. And some of those solutions vary, including our litigation, but the Study Act is one such solution.
Let's go to Paul in Marblehead. You're on with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Hey there, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Jim. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Andrea, I'm a Marblehead resident, and as you know, yesterday Marblehead voted to be in non-compliance with the MBTA 3A Act. I just wondered what your plans were with regards to sanctions for the town now, especially with the July 14th deadline looming.
Thank you, Paul, for the question. Obviously, was disappointed to see that result. I know it was a close one. So a couple of things. We continue to work with municipalities to make it crystal clear to them that the MBTA communities law is mandatory and it is not an unfunded mandate. The courts have made that crystal clear. We'll continue to provide that technical assistance, Paul, to the teams who are working on these issues in that community and others, and push for compliance. But I actually want to take a step back, because the MBTA communities tool is only one tool in the toolbox to allow us to address the housing crisis we're seeing in this state. And with the chaos and confusion coming from the federal government, housing development is slowing down. Even the tariffs conversations, you have folks looking to build affordable housing in Massachusetts, and they're calling the Canadian border on the cost of steel, rising construction costs. You name it, it is now becoming even more difficult for our state to meet our housing needs. So to house young families, elders who want to downsize, students who have talent, who come here, who want to stay here, or even employers who are looking to house their employees, or developers who want to bring about good projects, that's becoming more difficult. So the MBTA Communities Law is one tool that we said we have to maximize our office's role in bringing about that solution. But if we don't get our act together, stakeholder by stakeholder, community by community, we're suddenly going to have a Massachusetts that looks very different from the current neighborhood in which you live. It's going to be more available for those who have a lot more money. In addition to that, an economy that will suffer. You can't have a functioning economy if you don't have housing and a range of housing for our people. So I would push the town to continue to think about what happened yesterday. And then I'll circle back. We've always wanted to work in collaboration with communities, not bring a hammer to every situation. But we also have a responsibility, and I do, to enforce the law. So we'll evaluate and review what happened last night and go from there.
And by the way, you should say you've won every lawsuit.
That's exactly
the underlying
right.
thing, the unfunded mandate, essentially
right.
The state's position has been upheld. Before we go, Paul, thanks for the call. Before we go back to the calls, could you, and since you mentioned tariffs, could you give us like a 30-second response to what Trump signed into law last Friday? What's your reaction to the budget reconciliation, big, beautiful, it's not a bill anymore, big, beautiful law, I guess it is
The big,
now.
beautiful law that is tragic. It's heart-wrenching. So we are still evaluating. I think the bill's now over 1,000 pages, so we're obviously in the weeds on that. But people are going to lose their health care. Simple as that. Some of the funding that goes to healthcare and other types of organizations that provide services to our most vulnerable, they're going to lose that. Food assistance and food to elders or families, people are going to lose that. And some of it will happen in the short term where people will feel that pain, and others will feel it in the long term. And what's worse is the deficit is going to go up by trillions, even though they said this is something they wouldn't want to do, but yet they're doing it. And now I think the estimate was $4 trillion, while not helping people, not advancing our economy, and certainly not making us more competitive. And I think you saw the back and forth. And it was sad that people didn't exercise courage, right? Some Republicans did and said, I'm just going to give up my seat. Good for you. Because at the end of the day, our jobs are to serve the people and be accountable to the people. How do you go back to your district and explain that your Medicaid benefits are going to suddenly be gone? And so sadly, people are going to feel the brunt of that. We're still evaluating the impact on Massachusetts, but it will affect hundreds of thousands of people, make them more poor and more vulnerable, which is in total opposition of the work of our office and the AGO to help move people out of poverty, help grow their wealth, and frankly, make their lives better. And so we're fighting the fight on a whole host of fronts, but everyone should be concerned about that bill, and they'll learn in more short order the impacts it will have here as we do a deeper dive on the thousands of pages, or over 1,000 pages that we still have to review.
Well, Attorney General Campbell, you've got a lot of lawsuits going against the federal government. Tell us what they are. I know you're involving education cuts and saving Job Corps, but what are the ones you think are most important?
A ton. So obviously in pushing back, and we made our concerns known to our federal delegation about that bill that passed and the incredible harms it would have on our folks here. And I think it's a reminder to folks, I, as their Attorney General, will do everything I can to fight for our residents and our economy. But this is where voting really matters, the outcomes of elections. So I would encourage folks to be civically engaged in this moment in time to vote, to encourage others to vote, and to get involved in elections in other states too. On our front, we're fighting every single day, and it is sad and tragic. Most of our work is focused on the funding issues, the unlawful cuts by this administration when it comes to education, mental health grants, teacher grants, everything having to do with public health. But I'll lift up just, I think, the NIH lawsuits, because NIH lawsuits, it's billions of dollars, the #1 funding agency at the federal level to every state in the country for biomedical research, clinical trials, advancing research that will help us address PTSD, adult cancer, pediatric cancer, Alzheimer's. Massachusetts is at the forefront of all of that in this country and internationally. You cut that funding. We've had to file 2 lawsuits on this, and we've won both so far. You cut that funding. What does that mean? You cut a clinical trial for a young kid going for pediatric cancer. It's not like going to the gym and you missed an appointment with your trainer. You miss one trial in a clinical trial, it's game over. You have to start something over again if your body is ready and prepared to do another clinical trial. So this is life and death for residents who live here. And in addition to that, life and death for our economy, because our economy relies on academic institutions and our higher ed institutions. You saw BU recently have to make some really tough choices because of the chaos and confusion. So we're fighting to protect access to federal funding. Much of that funding has been turned on, including NIH funding, but the chaos and confusion inserted in the process disrupts our economy, undermines it. People lose their jobs, and people can lose their lives. And I don't know that we'll fully have wrap our head around what's at stake until we have sort of more time to grapple with the harm and the outcome. So I see this as an opportunity to be unapologetic in our advocacy and do it with a sense of urgency in protecting our people and our economy.
Okay, we got to take a quick break. We're going to be talking with the Attorney General until the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. If you want to get a call or text in to the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell. We are broadcasting from the Boston Public Library. This is BPR's Ask the AG. We're broadcasting on GBH and NEPM. And again, we're at the library in Copley Square, and we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The number one more time, 877-301-8970.
landmark treaty to stop the spread of nuclear arms took effect in 1970. Then President Richard Nixon had high hopes for it.
The first milestone, reducing the danger of nuclear war, and which led to lasting peace among nations.
Today, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty may be in jeopardy. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org. And the Museum of Printing in Haverhill, preserving the history of graphic communication from typewriters and presses to computers and copiers. Their expanded exhibit of rare and historic Bibles is now on view. More at museumofprinting.org. And Burton's Grill and Bar, featuring a scratch kitchen where each dish is customizable for those with food allergies or restrictions. A gluten-free menu is also available. Details on their allergy protocols at burtonsgrill.com. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, dreams delivered, with custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're halfway through the July edition of Ask the AG with Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Joy Campbell. If you want to talk to her, you can text her or call her at 877-301-8970. Before we get back to the calls, I have one quick follow-up to Marjorie's question about lawsuits. Do you view the Supreme Court of the United States as just a conservative, right-leaning court, or a court that is totally in the tank to the President of the United States?
I have real concerns. I was down there for our birthright citizenship case to protect birthright citizenship, which has been the law of the land for 150 years, and really lifts up the power of immigrants to this country, and how they're trying to target babies, right, to advance an immigration policy. And I thought the engagement between the justices was very thoughtful. Of course, we then got that decision, which was disappointing because they could have went further with it, but they didn't. Wasn't a complete loss. We just had to go back to the lower court and frankly, get a new order.
It was a pretty big win for him, even if it wasn't a complete loss on the merits of birthright citizenship.
Well, I actually think it was more, I actually think it was not as bad as people thought. I know he was running out there saying we sort of won. And it's like, actually, no, because we went in saying universal injunctions for everything across the country you have to be careful with. But I think the recent decisions, right, on curriculum decisions in our public schools, for example, or in our schools, it has been decades of legal precedent and previous decisions that give school districts the flexibility to determine their curriculums for their kids. And so you have all of these stays of different orders by the court where the court is offering no explanation, no signature. You don't know what their rationale is, why they're deporting certain people and they're not. That's what is unacceptable to me. We should be tasked with transparency, sharing with the public whatever our legal rationale is as to why we make a decision. And right now you're not seeing that. So it does jeopardize and undermine the whole entire system when we talk about institutions that are accountable to the people, accountable to the Constitution. I have real concerns about the politicization of the court, and everyone should.
You know, when you were talking about deporting people, has the power to do a lot of the things that they're doing in terms of deporting people.
Because of the federal government's authority with respect to immigration and overseeing ICE.
But there was a story, a report by the Associated Press about this Iranian mother who'd been in the country for 47 years, and she was following the rules. She had been allowed to stay as long as she checked in regularly with immigration authorities, and she did. And she was detained nonetheless. And Steve Scalise was a big deal, Republican House Majority Leader. People may remember he's most famously poor guy got shot a few years back and had a very miraculous recovery. But in any case, he stepped in, big deal politician, to get her out. And I thought, well, what does this mean? That, ICE is saying they can take away anybody, and it doesn't matter that she was a good citizen, it doesn't matter she's been here 47 years, tough. Except he stepped in. So That's kind of something.
So this ability to fight back and what we're seeing from ICE, they're saying it's all in the name of public safety. We're saying that is not true. It is fear-mongering in our communities. If you have masked agents walking around our communities, wreaking havoc, pulling people out of their cars in broad daylight, picking up folks who have active asylum applications, or, to your point, are checking in regularly with the immigration agencies in their respective communities, following the timeline to try to obviously become a citizen of this country, and they're still being detained. So it's not public safety, it is fear-mongering. The challenge is, how do we hold them accountable when the federal government has significant authority over ICE? I have significant authority over the state police, right? If we showed up in the way in which they have been in different communities, I would have to do a press release and a press conference to answer questions. People are now pushing the U.S. Attorney's Office to answer some questions in others. And so we're doing our part to advocate. So what does that look like? We put out guidance so people can know what to expect if they are detained. We're helping people get lawyers in real time. We're helping people get bond for some of the most egregious cases. We're fighting for due process, as we did in the Rumesa case. The tough student who was here lawfully should have never been detained. Good luck trying to hold ICE accountable for that detention. It's very difficult because the federal government has such significant authority here. So we can still fight for due process. We can still show up in court to support a Rumesa to get her out. But that's what's sad, is that we have to do it sort of case by case by case. That's difficult because we have an administration whose policy is not to go after criminals. It's actually to go after anyone who is an immigrant and in the process violate their rights. So we're getting at lawyers and doing the best we can, but it is disappointing and heart-wrenching. We obviously had the high school student in Milford that was picked up. He's not on the radar of anyone in law enforcement. He was heading to a sports practice, about to graduate from high school, and they picked him up and had no remorse or compassion or empathy after the fact. And the conditions in which they're housing people are also concerning. So we're doing our part in my office to support lawyers, get folks to sort of have a rapid response with many agencies. But it's difficult, and again, that's what the other point I made earlier. Elections have consequences, sadly. Who's in the White House, it determines how they're going to use our federal resources. I prefer they use it to go after criminals and not folks who are who are not committing any crimes, but they're choosing to do otherwise. So until we change who is leading the White House and other places, we're going to continue to get these results. So that's why I remind folks, you may not think voting makes a difference. It does. And being civically engaged does make a difference. It complements what we're attempting to do when we hit the wall in terms of our enforcement.
By the way, if you didn't read what Scalise said to get this woman out, he said, you should consider all the circumstances, which is exactly what normal people say.
My point is
everybody.
that he was a powerful Republican, and a powerful Republican is able to get this done. And by the way, she was from New Orleans. She was in Louisiana.
Well, I hope more folks will step up when they look at, and I would just say, because I am really concerned, in addition to the harm on residents' rights and our rights, including due process, which everyone, if they take away due process or the 14th Amendment, pick the amendment you like, they can take away that too. The president doesn't have the power to do that. So if you just stand idly by and we allow that, you should be concerned. But in addition to that, I'm concerned about our economy. So I've been attaching myself to various economists to learn more about the impacts on our economy here, short and long term, and it's astounding. But one of the things I learned recently is the folks who come here, the immigrants who come here, yes, you may get folks who perpetuate crime. In my office, we go after those folks for trafficking guns and weapons, and we hold them accountable. We don't go after folks who are looking to become a citizen, who are actively in an asylum process or some other application, who are committing no crime whatsoever, not on anyone's radar for any public safety issues, because we know we have limited resources. And so if the federal government's going to take those limited resources and just start rounding up immigrants, you should be concerned about, one, your due process rights, but also about our economy, because most of the folks who come here are coming to work. 2 or 3 jobs, they sustain our economy in ways that folks probably don't even really recognize, including our healthcare industry and healthcare institutions and higher ed institutions and so many more industries. Suddenly, we may not feel it now, but as more numbers come out in terms of jobs that can't be filled because we do not have immigrants or immigrants are living in fear, and you actually go for some services that you no longer have because immigrants are not showing up to work anymore or to school, then people, I think, will start to wake up. And I hope it doesn't have to get to such a dark place for people to understand the value of immigrants to Massachusetts and this country. Compared to the rest of the world, those coming here are coming with talent, they want to contribute, and are working really hard. And so the narrative we have to also push back, this idea that everyone's a criminal, is nonsense.
Stephen in Boston, you're on with the Attorney General, Andrea Joy Campbell. Welcome. Hi.
Stephen?
Stephen.
Hi. Yes, Jim and Roderick. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to ask the question.
Of course.
Attorney General, my question has to do with the Uber and Lyft settlement.
Yes.
And I've been a driver in Boston on and off for about 10 years now. And I've been following the reforms that have been put in place based on the settlement.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's been going well, with the exception of the restitution for the payments. Back in January, I looked on your website, and it actually said restitution payments would be expected sometime in spring of 2025. I've called Russ Consulting just to follow up, trying to get some clarification. And every time I've called, 5 or 6 times, they're always pushing it back a few weeks. Can you give any clarification in terms of what's going on and when we can expect payments?
Very soon. First of all, Stephen, thank you for the question, because it speaks to the other work we're doing that is not just Trump-focused. We still have our jobs and other responsibilities, including making sure the settlement provisions for the Uber and Lyft settlement get to the drivers. So I want to say a couple of things on this. One, this settlement that we secured here in Massachusetts has not happened in any other state in the country. So I'm really proud of that. Now you have Uber and Lyft drivers that have a minimum wage of $33.48. Didn't happen anywhere in the country. They will receive sick leave, which is also a new paid family and medical leave as a part of this settlement, a health stipend, which they didn't have before, and this restitution. Drivers actually don't have to do anything in terms of receiving the restitution checks, Stephen. Where it took a little bit longer is just the calculations that went into this with Russ, who's our settlement administrator, as you know, to get to, and I'm not going to take a while to do it on the radio, but to get to a point where we had to finalize what the payments amounts were, depending on how long folks were driving, et cetera. So checks will be going out soon. Drivers don't have to do anything. They will just receive that. So thank you for your patience, but this should be happening very soon. And if you want, you can follow up maybe in a week or so as we finalize this.
Stephen,
so thank you for your patience.
Attorney General, I think.
But I will say, people in Massachusetts should be proud of that, because I think in some of the noise that is making everyone depressed, including the death in Texas right now, which is horrific, right? Massachusetts continues to lead, not just on the lawsuit front, NIH funding and all the other lawsuits. We also are leading on the other proactive work to protect drivers or workers who are fighting for a livable wage, and we are the leader of that. So we may not be New York or California, but we punch above our weight. And I've been saying this every day, I feel like Muhammad Ali. We're punching above our weight every day, and that's something that should make everyone proud to live in this state and be a part of this state.
A lot of texts, not surprisingly. There's something we discuss with you every month.
No, what? On Uber and Lyft?
No. I'll just pick one. Stephen Newberry, I just tuned in. Has the AG already discussed working with the state auditor regarding the auditor's desire, that's
no,
wrong.
It's what I said in the last
law, to conduct an audit of the legislature. Where are we?
The same place we were before.
Which, for those who weren't listening last month, in one sentence, where are we?
Nothing's changed. We continue to go back and forth with the auditor on just the scope of what she wants to audit.
I have a new tact on this, if I may, just briefly.
I have a new issue.
Okay, fine, you can do this. Beyond you saying you're not getting what you need from the auditor saying we're giving you in the legislature, she's told us everything you need and then some. Regardless of who's right in that situation, you or Auditor DiZoglio, this is the law of Massachusetts. It's a law like any law passed by the legislature. This happened to be passed by 71% of the voters. Isn't one of your responsibility to ensure that the laws of the state are enforced?
Absolutely.
This is not being enforced.
Absolutely. So where I disagree, and the auditor knows this because we made it crystal clear even before we approved the ballot, that our ridiculous and I would say stupid process, and I think it was done, no offense to the men listening or in this room, by a whole bunch of men, when they designed the ballot
We don't take any offense at that at all. Go ahead.
And literally, you actually, when you're going through to approve whether or not something should go to the ballot and to the voters to actually vote on, you actually don't determine at the outset, at the beginning, whether or not it is constitutional.
That is correct.
Which is ridiculous.
That's the Constitution.
So we're wasting at times people's time because you pass something like the ballot question. Then you have to go back and do a constitutional analysis, hence this back and forth with the auditor. And this is not personal. I understand where the auditor is coming from around transparency, accountability. We're just talking about that in the context of the Supreme Court. Folks in the state legislature, greater transparency, et cetera. We are for that. But at the end of the day, the court will ask us, well, what are you attempting to audit? Because there are certain authorities the auditor has in terms of auditing the legislature, and certain authorities she does not. So this was happening at the same time we told her, one, your audit of the legislature, it can't be done in a certain way, and at the same time we had the ballot question. So that's the evaluation. Post that ballot question, in order to enforce it, we have to know what is the scope of the audit.
Why don't you just tell her what she can do and what she can't do?
So
forget what she says. Why don't you?
Because that's not my job. So when we represent the state agencies, I don't just represent the auditor. I represent every state agency.
So this standoff, if you never get what you want from the auditor, we could go 4 years from the people having voted for this overwhelmingly.
Not necessarily.
And nothing happens.
Not necessarily. We could at some point possibly have to remove my office and everyone get their own lawyers to do it. But we don't do that lightly because you usually do that in a very extreme circumstances. It is very rare that you would do that.
How would you feel if you're one of the you were one of the 71% of the voters who voted
at
yes?
The end of the,
you told us, how would you feel if you're an average person who is one of the 71% and doesn't understand all the legalese between you and DiZoglio and saying, I don't understand this. I voted for this. Why isn't this happening?
I would be frustrated. I always say what frustrates me about government is how much money and time we waste not helping people. So in this case, we're not wasting time. We had a back and forth, and we have for a long time, where it's changed over time in conversations with the auditor and her team. And not to discount, these are public workers. But we need certain information. And if you don't get that,
when was
or
the
it's
last
a back
time you
and
two
forth,
communicated with each other?
I feel like it's been a little while since I've seen her in person.
Okay.
And I will say it's not for sort of any animosity. It's frankly because we don't know what's going to come from the Trump administration. I feel like just when I get off this radio, who knows what happened in D.C. that immediately requires our response to that. Or, frankly, someone randomly picked up by ICE where we then have to mobilize to help. So I'm not discounting
and we get the CNN on here. Every time we turn around, it's another disaster. It's unbelievable. You can't concentrate. So this is something, and Jim can follow up on this question, too, because Jody from Canton wants to know what's happening with ex-CEO of Steward Healthcare, Ralph DeLatorre. Are you going to indict him? I feel like the Attorney General and the Governor are evasive about this. Many people lost their jobs. People died because of him. Hospitals closed. I feel like it's out of sight, out of mind. People are clawing back, trying to claw back
Steward is trying to claw back money itself in the bankruptcy court.
But not out of sight or out of mind. And I actually appreciate who was this.
This is Jody from Canton.
Jody, I appreciate you lifting this up, Jody. It is not. Even if I go by the Kearney, which is now closed, it makes it front and center. There used to be an emergency room there that or had to go elsewhere. We take the health responsibilities that we have very seriously. But to do an investigation, and I know some people are reading it through the media, it takes time, and that is what we are undertaking. So I can't talk about it while it's ongoing, but it's ongoing. You're talking about interviews of witnesses. You're talking about reviewing documents. If anything, having to actually put more team members on this is important, while also balancing the work of this accountability, which we have not forgotten, and also what's coming from the Trump administration in terms of healthcare cuts, et cetera. It's a lot, but it has not been lost. At least for my office, it's front and center for sure.
There's a criminal investigation going on?
And we will circle back on our investigation. When we are able to talk about it publicly, I will come back here once we get to a conclusion where I can share it, but I can't right now.
But there's a criminal investigation going on?
We are currently investigating. That's all I can say.
Okay. Andy in New Bedford, you're on with the Attorney General.
And to Jody's point, not forgotten. I know people have lost their lives and jobs. And frankly, even before I took office, we're dealing with this for years. Hence some legislative fixes that are needed here, too.
For people to know, the only government entity that is criminally indicted, dilatory, and is number 2 from Brookline is Malta. Nobody in the United States has gone after this guy
And I will
criminally.
say, one complication here,
Yeah.
and we'll see in other cases too, is before this administration, we had federal agencies that we worked with collaboratively on these cases, including Medicaid fraud cases, elder abuse cases, the U.S. Attorney. We had a working relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office and others. That doesn't exist. And that makes it more difficult, especially if the federal laws are stronger than the state laws to hold people accountable. So another serious impact of the lack of collaboration between the federal administration and
Have you ever talked to the
state.
U.S. Attorney about
I have.
Steward? About Steward?
Well, I can't say with Steward. When she got the role and responsibility, welcomed her to that new role that she has, and said we want to continue to collaborate, not just on this, on a whole host of matters. But that becomes more challenging if they're directing all their resources to the immigration fear-mongering we're seeing, or pulling away from certain cases that need accountability.
Andy in New Bedford, you're on with the Attorney General. Hi.
Andy?
Andy.
Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? Great.
Perfectly.
Attorney General, my name is Andy Pollack. I'm president of the board of the South Coast LGBT Network. And on January 17, 2023, we had an incursion of the NSC 131 at a drag story hour in the library in Taunton.
Yes.
Yes. I was wondering how that's proceeding. It was quite traumatic for us, and since then we've been doing quite a lot to provide our own security. So,
Andy, what would be helpful is if you could actually stay on, because it is specific, and in terms of the additional security and other ways that we might be able to be helpful in real time as you're doing this. But the lawsuit, so, to make it clear to the public, we filed a lawsuit against them. The neo-Nazi group, sadly, started here in Massachusetts. We often don't want to lift that up because it's not something we should be proud about. And because of our lawsuit against them, New Hampshire, which has a Republican AG, followed suit and filed as well because of the patrolling of neighborhoods, the targeting of folks in the LGBTQ plus community, the interference of just everyone's civil rights. They filed a lawsuit too. That is progressing, and we've won some milestones along the way when they've tried to dismiss the lawsuit, which is positive for us, and I think makes it crystal clear that we're going to take on hate organizations that are violating the rights of our residents, and most importantly, stand up for the LGBTQ plus community, which continues to be under threat even by the federal administration. So Andy, please stay on. We can give you some other updates, but also maybe have a conversation about other ways we might be helpful to you and what you're doing in New Bedford and the surrounding communities.
Andy, if you stay on hold, one of our
Yep.
producers will get your contact info and give it to the Attorney General. Thank you for your call.
Here's someone that sounds like they could use some help. This is Verena from Dartmouth. She says, my question concerns about 10 years that my mother worked for the town of Weymouth, but they have no record of her employment, so she isn't getting any credit for her years there in her Social Security payment. She's 88 and retired.
She's young and fabulous.
Yeah, young and fabulous.
Verena, okay.
And also, after you work for a city or state or city for 10 years, don't you get a pension in Massachusetts? I think you do.
Right,
Maybe
you get
she's
vested. There's a lot of benefits that come.
Maybe
So
she's
can
losing out on
Verena,
Verena from Dartmouth.
I would love her to connect with
you know
Martin,
what,
who's
Verena,
here from my team.
if you can text back with your phone number or a way to reach you. We don't have. Do we have their phone numbers? We do have
She's
their
willing-
phone numbers.
okay.
Yeah,
We
maybe
can
we can
follow up.
get the phone number from here.
We'll
yes,
share
we're
it.
getting the phone number from here,
Yeah,
Verena.
because Martin can follow up. We can follow
Okay.
up with Verena. We can also connect with Andy as well.
Okay, thank you. We have the phone number. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to Joanne in West Roxbury, who's on with the AG.
Joanne.
Hey, Joanne.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
And I'll just say quickly about the cell phone issue. I
Yeah.
taught in Boston Public Schools for my career.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I think they're a great distraction.
You're right.
And as I was teaching, and when kids were going on to like MySpace or whatever it was, they were constantly distracted by media. They were constantly distracted by video games,
Got it.
special ed.
Hey, Joanne, we're running out of
Joanne,
time.
things
I
have
don't mean to
moved
be
on.
disrespectful.
Now they're watching porn. That's what the texters are telling me.
My question is
Thank you, Joanne, for that.
Thank
I
you,
was
Marjorie, for that.
compromised in the Harvard Pilgrim data security incident. I had that happened, I no longer had Harvard Pilgrim as my insurer. And I
Hey,
thought
Joanne, I have bad news for you. Your connection's horrible. What we're going to do is put you on hold. none of us can understand what you're saying. It's not your fault. We'll put you on hold, get your contact info, and will you reach out?
Joanne, yeah, we'll follow
It's
up.
around the question. She said to the call screener, she's affected by Harvard Pilgrim's data breach. Should she enter a class action? Is that advisable?
Won't you stay on the
hold,
line? Yes.
Joanne. Sorry about that, but we just
And I
couldn't make
appreciate
out what
the
you were saying.
commentary from Joanne. I mean, this is why the Teachers Association and others, so many are supporting the Study Act because, to your point, trying to enforce cell phones and just have that engagement with the student, they don't have time for it, and it also can quickly become confrontational. And so they'd rather not do it. And I think right now you see inconsistency where one school district may have, only for certain periods of time you can have your cell phone, and other periods you can't, which also creates a lot of confusion for educators.
So we only have 2 minutes left, but there was a story in the Globe that put Marjorie and me both over the edge, and you're involved in this, I think, on the right side. RMV will not renew your license if it turns out you got a lot of tickets and you can't work out a payment plan, apparently, under the law. You can't ask for some hardship kind of thing. But the story in the Globe went on to say the current law does say if you've been found guilty of drunk driving or you're a habitual traffic offender, you can get hardship exemptions. Like, you're looking at me like, I think you're quoted. Am I not right about this? Is someone... Maybe not. In any case, is there any? Let me ask you straight up. Is there any reason that someone should be denied a license or not even given a payment plan opportunity if the only a sin they have committed is unpaid tolls or tickets? Can take away their livelihood.
The Attorney General's in here.
Oh, you are in the story.
Yes.
Let me look into this.
Well, you did look into it. You're in the story. What does it say in the story?
It says Julian Sear, Cape Democrat, pushing a bill limiting the registry's authority to impose
What's it
tax
say
on
about
driver's
her?
license. Well, I'm getting to that. And physical registrations triggered by state taxes in certain files. The bill, which is backed by State Attorney General Andrea Campbell,
That's you, by the way.
will let drivers seek to have their fees
fine.
waived or reduced based on financial hardship, and direct the registry to send bill payment
You have 30
reminders by
seconds.
email.
So now this makes sense. You said
Sorry.
Julian Sear's bill. So I was like, I thought it was like a constituent
My
case.
fault.
I'm like, Sear's efforts and bill here, because to your point, similar to our just debt collection work, as we're trying to help people grow their wealth. We don't think people should go to jail, which you can happen in Massachusetts for debt, carrying debt, and we don't think that people should lose their livelihood or driver's license without if they have an opportunity to be able to repay that back. So it seems to me like it's a common sense bill, but it's not us taking the lead, it's the senator taking the lead in ways to help people.
So here's the follow-up final question.
Yeah.
How old will your grandchildren be when the legislature deals with this issue?
I can't.
Sorry.
First of all, I want to thank Senator Sear because he was also helpful in addition to this bill, the Study Act, which now this makes sense. I was like, what driver's license case? Who's doing what?
Attorney General
but
was
it might
thrilled
take
to
a
see
long
you.
time, but I don't think it's going to take that long.
Not if you get involved.
I have to say, though,
Quickly.
I want to thank the legislature because obviously with the budget that just happened that we just got a significant increase to help with some of this federal accountability work, which is really important. People are working hard. But in the midst of everything, it's just a reminder to folks, sometimes you got to just turn off the news. You just have to turn things off and just be present with yourself and your family and your friends. It's a hard time right now, including what's happening in Texas. So take care of yourself. And I hope people find moments of joy this summer, their friends and their family. It's really important. But thanks for having me as always.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Attorney General.
Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell, that was what's the last hour with her, and we thank her very much for her time. We say goodbye to the people listening at NEPM, but tune into the fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. The show's going to continue here in Boston, coming up after the new news. Arts editor Jared Bowen, our food policy analyst Corby Kummer, author Sy Montgomery, and an early edition of our favorite segment of the week, Am I the A-Hole? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Ken Burns, and conservation photographer Christina Mittermeier. bostonspeakers.org. The fashion trends we chase to fit in often leave a lasting mark on our planet, from runway to throwaway. Explore the global impact of fashion and watch Human Footprint tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on the second hour of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start with GBH's executive arts editor, Jared Bowen, on a Putin-loving celebrity maestro finally getting a chance to conduct in the West, should he? Plus, we'll get Jared's heart racing with Brad Pitt and a new F1 racing flick.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Tufts food policy analyst Corby Kummer on the draconian cuts coming to SNAP benefits or food for the poor from the Trump administration. Plus, is America ready to part ways with red dye number 2? HHA Secretary and brainworm survivor RFK Jr. wants to take away your M&Ms. All that plus 2 more things. That's next on BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Greg Abbott's orders to honor the victims of the 4th of July weekend floods. The death toll statewide has climbed to 110, the vast majority of the losses in Kerr County. Governor Abbott says more than 160 individuals are still unaccounted for. NPR's Frank Morris reports search parties say their grim work is far from over.
The Guadalupe River buried some of its victims in huge, dense jumbles of logs and steel debris. That's why they're hard to find. On a well-searched section of river near Ingram, Texas, volunteers with the group Texas EquiSearch think they found another body. Mark Edwards, the group's field operation manager, points to heavy equipment, carefully disassembling a tangled mess.
And so we began to remove that tree pile. And some of those tree piles were 30 and 40 foot tall, wrapped in RVs and cars up against the trees.
Edwards says there are miles and miles of scenes like this along the Guadalupe River. He thinks finding all the bodies will take weeks. Frank Morris, NPR News, Kerrville, Texas.
A U.S. Supreme Court ruling's clearing the way for the Trump administration to lay off hundreds of thousands of federal workers. NPR's Andrea reports on the impact on agencies.
This affects close to 20 agencies, including very large ones like the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Agriculture, the Treasury Department, and many others. And in some cases, like at Health and Human Services, some 10,000 employees had already been issued layoff notices, and the reason most of them are still on the payroll is because of that lower court order that's now gone, for now anyway. We don't know how soon people might be formally separated.
NPR's Andrea reporting. A day after meeting with President Trump about Gaza ceasefire talks, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was expected to meet today with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. The administration has expressed optimism of an agreement this week that leads to a truce between Israel and Hamas and the release of living and deceased hostages. In Turkey, an imprisoned Kurdish leader has been heard from for the first time in decades, calling on the militant group he founded to disarm. Here's NPR's Jana Raff.
Abdullah Öcalan founded the Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, and he's been imprisoned since 1999. Öcalan is revered by many Kurds, but Turkey and the U.S. consider the PKK terrorists, and the public hasn't heard his voice in more than 20 years. On Wednesday, the Turkish government allowed the release of a video address by Öcalan.
That's NPR's Jana Raff reporting. U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour with the Dow up 88 points at 44,329. The S&P's risen 19 points and the Nasdaq is up 115 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Crane Beach in Ipswich has new safety measures in place due to the number of white sharks near the beach in 2024. Mass Live reports that the trustees of Crane Beach released a statement saying that the new safety measures will focus on the beach's staff and visitors. The beach was first closed in September of 24 after the trustees said the Ipswich harbor master and marine biologist Greg Skomel had met. While no sharks have been spotted there this summer, there are now marked swim zones, and staff has been given enhanced safety training and beach operation protocols. At least one shark detection buoy will be put where sharks were confirmed to be last year. And New Haven, Connecticut prides itself on its pizza. Now it's also vying to host the world's largest pizza party. Connecticut Public's Eddie Martinez has more.
Colin Kaplan isn't just a fan of New Haven-style pizza. He actually keeps a copy of a federal document calling New Haven the pizza capital of the United States in his messenger bag.
This right here is the congressional record statement that Lou's boss right here, Rosa DeLauro, helped me create.
Kaplan owns a food tourism business and produced a documentary about New Haven-style pizza. He's now leading the effort for what could be the world's largest pizza party. He estimates he'll need 625 pies to feed up to 5,000 people. He's got a system to make sure everyone gets their fair share.
So the idea is we'll have a system of getting 2 slices to every person, and once they've consumed it, once they've been witnessed, they then can go wander throughout this festival in this beautiful green.
The current title holder belongs to Tulsa, Oklahoma. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm Eddie Martinez.
72 degrees in Boston, slice of pie. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Here's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Thank you. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before we get to our next guest, programming notes, Jim, we sat down with former Meet the Press host Chuck Todd for his Toddcast the other day and had a long conversation among the 3 of us about journalism, democracy, and politics. So if you haven't heard enough of me and Jim yakking, you can hear it some more with Chuck Todd. He went live today at the ChuckToddcast.com. It's also at youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast, or wherever you get your Toddcast. You were spectacular in the Toddcast.
I was
Jim.
spectacular, and you were fine.
We were fine, thank you.
No, that was a joke. You were great. It was really fun. It was fun to be interviewed for a change.
You don't remember anything about what we had to say. Neither do I.
I know everything I said. I have no idea what you said. But in any case, listen to it. Chuck was great, and we were adequate. In any case, hello again, Marjorie.
Hi.
And Jared is here. That would be Jared Bowen. That's you. He is you know that, right? By the way, you're the executive arts editor here at GBH, and you're the host of the Culture Show, which airs every day on 89.7 at 2 p.m. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. But I'm just like you both, that as soon as we're done with the show, the server deletes. Everything is gone.
It's true.
I think it's the only way to do it.
I know.
Jared, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, so Jared Bowen, we're going to start with some sound from the apparent super hit of the summer, which is a Brad Pitt movie called F1. We're going to play some sound. Here's Ruben Cervantes, played by Javier Bardem, and Sonny Hayes, played by Brad Pitt, in this scene from F1, the movie, when Cervantes is trying to convince Hayes to race cars again.
We've got an entire assembly line of kids raised on the simulator.
No, I don't have time for some kid to learn how to come in 10th. I don't.
Well, you don't just walk off the street and pilot a rocket.
Yes, you can if you've done it before. That's the whole point. Louis Chiron was 57 years old when he won the Monaco Grand Prix.
Who is who?
Philippe Danselang, 56 years old.
You just Googled these names, didn't you?
Some people look at Sonny Hayes. They see a guy who lives in a van, a gambling junkie who missed his shot.
Wow, Ruben, you are really selling this.
But I see a guy who makes teams better. I see experience. I see know-how.
You're off your meds.
My rook is a phenomenal talent. Phenomenal. But he's young. You know what he lacks? Maturity. You plus him, boom. I got a team.
The only thing worse than the acting is the script.
Well,
I mean, that is
I know
unbelievable.
it's gotten trashed in a lot of places, but people think it's wonderful. Apparently,
I totally disagree. Well, again, it's all context. You're not going into this thinking you're going into an Oscar winner necessarily. That's not to say they don't come out during the summer, but I thought this movie was so incredibly fun. It is what a summer blockbuster is supposed to be. That you have big movie stars and you have fun filmmaking. It's original for once. In the summer of sequels, as we've had forever now, this is something that's new, and I thought it was really well done because if you listen to the backstory, so as you kind of gleaned from that clip there, Brad Pitt plays Sonny, who has been through the ringer and hasn't really succeeded in his career. So this is why he gets tapped to join this Formula One racing team that will race all over Europe, because he can bring the expertise that Javier Bardem's character remembers from their days together racing. And so Brad Pitt shows up and he brings his sort of emotional IQ and everything else to make this team very successful, not without some failings, but it's really, really fun. And Brad Pitt spent the better part of 2 years driving. So all of these scenes that you're seeing, from what I have read, are not CG. They are in Formula One race cars.
Tom Cruise kind of thing,
exactly.
where he's doing his own stunts.
Exactly.
Tom Cruise, of course, did come back for the 17th Mission Impossible as an older fighter pilot, right? Wasn't that the premise in that movie,
Well, yeah,
too?
hanging off the airplane.
Yeah.
As we learned. There's a little bit of a
Not
harness
Mission
there.
Impossible, Top Gun.
Top Gun.
Yeah, Top Gun.
Mission Impossible.
Well, no,
Top
he did
Gun.
Mission Impossible too.
Whatever
Yeah,
it
he
was.
did.
They all
but,
kind of
but
blend
Top
together.
Gun, there was a second Top Gun, right? The first
Maverick,
one.
and actually it's the same director for F1 as from Top Gun Maverick.
there you go.
So it's blockbuster people who know how to make these
So
movies.
did the fact that Brad Pitt is relatively good looking have anything to do with your review or no?
Well, I noticed that Marjorie smiled when she
course.
mentioned Brad Pitt's name.
Yeah, I mean, Brad Pitt's easy on the eyes, as they say, is he not?
Is he good? I don't even know. Is he a good actor? I'm trying to think of what I've seen him in. Is he a good actor?
I remember he did Interview with a Vampire with Tom
Missed
Cruise. He was good in that. He was really good in Legends of the Fall. Remember
Legends
that?
of the Fall. I remember that. That went
Never
on
heard
for.
of it.
It was like a 4-hour movie.
It was. He did A River Runs Through It. There was a whole Western part of his career.
And he was like 11 in Thelma and Louise, right?
Yeah.
When he was a little boy, right?
Oh, he was so cute in Thelma
Oh,
and
how
Louise.
he was
robbed
really
them
cute.
all
He was.
in
Why
their
is Sue
hotel
O'Connell
room.
laughing? Why is she here, actually? But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sue and I just had a major catch-up.
Does she know she's not on the show today? Did you talk to her about that?
No,
or
she is on the show. You didn't do your Sue research?
I panicked immediately when I saw her.
Okay, well, I have no interest in that film, but thank you for that.
Okay,
But I do have
let's move
huge
on.
interest in this Moonwalkers thing. And by the way, one of the things I love about Tom Hanks, this is a versatile kind of character. In addition to being a brilliant actor, on which I assume we would all agree, he's produced a ton of stuff. He produces these CNN specials, all this stuff. Here's this Moonwalkers project, which you'll describe in a minute. It's a trailer from this immersive storytelling experience narrated by, as I said, Tom Hanks.
In the 50,000 years of human history, just 12 of us have traveled from our Earth to walk on another celestial body.
40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Now join me on a journey back to the moon in a remarkable immersive show, The Moonwalkers.
Till August 31st, the castle. How is this thing? I hope it's great.
It's really, really interesting and well done because we've seen this evolution of these immersive experiences. It started with Van Gogh,
and the Titanic that we all saw.
Right, well, and that's different because that's more akin to a museum exhibition.
Yeah.
But these immersive installations, I think, have gone from splashing Van Gogh paintings on the wall to music and basically just looking at a screensaver for a few hours until we have something like the Moonwalkers, which is actually crafted. So what happened here is Tom Hanks saw this display of David Hockney's paintings in London in this giant warehouse, and he came together with this team, and they wondered if there was a way to tell the moon landing story and do it in the same fashion. So you walk into this space at the castle at Park Plaza, and as the film gets underway, it's happening on the floor, it's happening on the walls, and what's really extraordinary is that they have done so much work to remaster photographs that were taken on the moon from the various moon missions that put 12 people on the moon. Up until maybe 2027 when the next round goes. And these are crystalline images. And I was talking to one of the producers after, and he was explaining basically there was no gas or those elements that can obscure photographs.
Yeah.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think that so much of what we see in history books or documentaries is in black and white. So when you see these crystalline color photographs on the moon and you understand that they were doing experiments there, that they would have days off on the moon. So they're just basically bouncing around. The first electric vehicle was on the moon. That was the Range Rover, or the lunar rover. But this is all through the prism of Tom Hanks, who has crafted this with writers, but he's giving it through his perspective, which is as a 12-year-old, when he first saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, he became enraptured with the notion of space and exploration, and shortly thereafter, he sees the moon landing as a 12-year-old.
Plus, he was in Apollo whatever,
Apollo
wasn't he?
13.
Yeah, so this has
they
been
played Jim Lovell.
a career-long...
That was a really good movie.
It was a great movie.
But this has been a career-long fascination, and so it gives us this whole lead-up from the President Kennedy speech to what it took to get off the ground, what was on the moon, and then bringing back to Earth. And I have to say, it closes with a line that I thought was so resonant, especially for today, which is, we went to the moon as a human family. It's kind of, not to say that there wasn't strife in the 70s, but it's hard to imagine us coming together today as we did then. But it's through his prism, and he has this personal touch, which frankly I think it sags a little bit under that, because you want to go back to the moon, you want to understand more of the stories. And also he has done interviews with the Artemis team. They are the astronauts who will be landing on the moon next. Now it looks like 2027.
So it's right up the street.
Right up the street.
Yeah, so we should go.
It's a great experience, and they've created a whole soundscape with it, so it does provide you that immersive experience.
My recollection is when I said, I think the only immersive thing I've ever been to, I'm trying to think, was the Van Gogh deal, which I loved. And I thought you didn't like it because you're a purist. I don't mean that in a pejorative way. You didn't like it, did you?
That one I kind of liked because it was the first one, but then as they went along, it just felt like a screensaver. What I appreciate now is when there's some sort of context or narrative to it. Okay. So there's a little bit of story there.
Okay, fair enough.
Not a purist about that stuff. No.
Now, I never heard of Valery. How do you say this guy's last name? Gergiev?
I think it's Gergiev.
Okay, so he's this maestro, conductor, brilliant. But he is also a huge high-profile Putin apologist. And as a result, he has been banned from his trade, conducting, for years in the West. And all of a sudden, he's got a gig over there in Italy. And it reignites a conversation we probably had with you maybe 100 times through the years, is whether or not you can, and it probably started with Woody Allen, who used to be my favorite filmmaker, is can you separate the artist from the human and from his or her misdeeds in life and their brilliance at their craft, and remind people, where are you on the concept, and then we can talk about this guy.
Well, it's case by case. So of course I was thinking about this, and we have all of the accusations but no convictions against Michael Jackson, but a lot of people can't listen to his music anymore. I love listening to Michael Jackson's music. He was a musical genius. So
I've listened to Beat It a few times, I must admit.
I listen to the music, I appreciate it. I cannot watch a Woody Allen movie, but the reason I can't is because his plot lines are so centered in what
Manhattan.
Turned out to be his life and marrying his daughter wife.
Yeah.
So no go. But Picasso, we've heard how misogynistic he was, how horrible he was to women and to his wives. I still really enjoy his paintings. I still really seek them out. Now this one becomes a little complicated because I think it's unfolding in real time. So we know that he is a supporter of Vladimir Putin. We know that he has spoken out against Ukraine in this war, and he has sided with them. I can't imagine that I wouldn't go to a concert that he's conducting because this is all still unfolding and because he's had no evolution. Because at the same time we're talking about him, and the reason we're talking about this is because suddenly he gets this gig in Italy, whereas prior to this, he's been in places like China and Serbia and the UAE, where Russia has focused its soft power and has sent its artists who still support Putin. There's an opera singer who spoke out against the war in Ukraine, so she's starting to get gigs again, even though she has a close allyship. But no, I couldn't go to a concert.
How about you, Marjorie? Are you on a case by case? I should know this, but I forget. Are you a case-by-case person?
I'm somewhat hypocritical about it because I do think Michael Jackson did very bad things, and I have listened to that. It's the greatest album of all time.
Well, how about you? Every Thanksgiving, you used to watch Hannah and Her Sisters with Woody Allen.
Well, I was going to say that we put that on the no-go list for a long time. This Thanksgiving, we did watch it. It isn't Woody having sex with somebody who's 17 years old. They're all older women, and it's a compilation of stars. But this one, I think you hit the nail on the head. This one, the whole time you're watching this guy, Conductor, it'd be like watching Andres Nelson's if he had, and of course he hasn't, he's a wonderful guy, but if he'd done something horrible, it would take away your enjoyment. All you could think about was these Ukrainians, and here's this guy, soft on Putin. And they also mentioned in the story that ballet companies, the Bolshoi, and these face cancellations in Europe, and other Russian musicians besides this guy. So to me, because it's happening in real time, because Russia has been responsible for the death and horrors of tens of thousands of people and taken away all those children and not given them back. I mean, I don't know. How could you do it?
Well, you know, I just realized when we were having this discussion, because I was nodding in agreement with you and now with Marjorie about the fact that this is in real time. The guy who just broke the all-time scoring record in the NHL, Wayne Gretzky's, is this guy Ovechkin, I think for the Washington hockey team. And I read a lot of stories about it because I wasn't aware, I don't follow hockey, but I was unaware that anybody was even approaching the great Gretzky, who now is also in trouble because he's a big Trump fan, by the way. And people in Canada, where he used to be a hero, are not so happy with him because Canadians are not happy with Trump, obviously, right now. And Ovechkin, I read a lot of stories about it. It was barely a mention that he's very close to Putin. I just looked it up. He founded Putin Team is the name of the thing, a social media campaign to show support for Putin. And so...
But that's different, too, because he's one of many team members. You know, it's not
no, but they were celebrating him because he personally broke the all-time scoring record. They weren't celebrating his team for the record. It's just, it's a really tough... I mean, my favorite movie, as you know, is Annie Hall. I don't watch Annie Hall anymore.
Is, I mean, look at Navalny. He's murdered all these people. Murdered the opposition people on the bridge.
Murdered Navalny. Okay.
Vladimir Putin murdered Navalny, not the hockey player. He didn't murder Navalny.
No, because he's buttered his bread in the right places.
Putin is just kind of beyond the pale. I think most of us would agree.
He's a mass murderer, obviously.
Yeah. So it's a little different.
Here's an anonymous texter. Is this Conductor going to play the Kennedy Center next? Which is a whole other...
Doesn't that become interesting after the last 24 hours and what the president has said about Vladimir Putin?
Yeah. I know. He's
used
coming
the word
around.
BS out loud, saying, and he seemed to be angry with him.
This is the anger that came out of nowhere. So, how does this change the dynamic,
Well, I hope it changes the dynamic is that we rearm Ukraine. I hope that's what it means.
Well, even though this isn't a cultural topic, if you were watching CNN last night, since you brought it up, and there was Maggie Haberman, who arguably is as good a reporter as is on the planet when it comes to Trump, said, I have serious this is based on what Trump said at the press conference, I have serious doubt as to whether or not Trump was aware that we had ceased giving arms to Ukraine last week, that the decision may have been made and he just wasn't aware. And this is not me saying it, this is Maggie Haberman.
Well, he sat at that press conference and said, you tell me, when the reporter asked him, what?
Exactly. Was it Pete Hegseth?
We're supposed to remind the president what's happening?
Where's Mr. Hegseth? We don't know. He's not going to last.
Who?
Hegseth.
Yeah. How many times have we said that?
I think he's going to. I don't think he's going to make it.
Tell us what's going on in the Gardner.
So they have a show. All right. So, actually, I think everything we've kind of talked about aside from the Russian issue is something that you can really enjoy summer with. We'll take the AG's recommendation to find a little joy right now. And you can definitely do that at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where you'll find Ming Fay, Edge of the Garden. It's an exhibition that just opened, and it's on view through September 21st. This is an artist who came to the United States from China early on and established a career in New York, but being in New York, he wasn't really exposed to nature because he was in this urban environment. So he would seek out nature wherever he could find it. And I'm putting this in the past tense because sadly he died earlier this year after a very long, illustrious career. So he would look down on the ground and he would find maple leaf twists, or he would find seeds, or he would seek out the vegetable markets in Chinatown. And then he would go home and he would create large-scale versions of these leaves and fruit and create garden and installations. He created wishbones because he had, you probably have all done this, speaking of Thanksgiving or other meals, where you find the wishbone from the turkey or the chicken, and you make a wish and you break it.
That's right.
When he was on his honeymoon, he wished to have a son and did the wishbone thing, and sure enough, very shortly thereafter came the son. So that's a recurring motif in his work. But the way this is installed at the Gardner is that you're walking through these gardens filled with giant beauty, and you do a little bit of a deeper dive. You understand the peach represents longevity, the cherry represents good luck. So not only is he creating this enjoyment, but he's embedded this great symbology and history and appreciation. They've created, it's a really fabulous design that they've created, because you're meandering through the gallery just as you might a garden. And at one point, because it's in the Contemporary Art Gallery at the Gardner that is walled in on one end by glass, you can look into Isabella Stewart Gardner's Monk's Garden.
That's pretty
and
great.
So outside nature is informing this artist again, and vice versa. So it's just really, really lovely, and it's nice to go and just enjoy something.
You know, the Gardner Museum, if people haven't gone, the whole thing is just so beautiful. That center atrium is just, and they keep they change the flowers all the time. They
curate it, just
the
art.
It's just beautiful. It's very peaceful.
You know what we forgot, by the way, is Peggy Fogelman, who runs the show, who's fabulous. Didn't she talk to us last time we were there about having the woman, you probably know her, who does all the floral stuff in the middle? What you know? I can't think of the name of the woman
blanking right now. She's been on the Culture Show a couple
she
times.
Has?
She's great, and she also does this other project of working with other communities and sharing the garden wisdom. It's driving me crazy that I can't remember.
Well, in any case, we should follow up on that.
Yeah.
So speaking of follow up, I think I didn't even know you were doing this till this morning. You're doing a debate. Well, I don't know if it's a debate forum, whatever the hell it is, for the two major candidates for mayor. The two, I don't mean this disparagingly, but the two, third and fourth place people on culture and arts. When's it happening? Who's participating? What's the deal?
So this is happening July 3rd. The participants are Mayor Michelle Wu.
30th.
July 30th, what did I say?
3rd.
Oh, yeah, no.
30th.
Yeah, it didn't happen in the past.
No, it hasn't, as far as I know.
But we'll report on it after it happens. Yeah, it's happening July 30th. I'll make sure I get this right. At the Strand Theater. It's called the Boston Mayoral Forum on Arts and Culture. Just go to Mass Creative, because you can go on there to register. Obviously, you can attend this for free, but it's Mayor Michelle Wu, Josh Kraft, and Domingos De Rosa. 3 candidates who...
three, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, who will be talking about their platform for arts and culture. So if this is very important to you, and we know the hits that the arts have taken over the last 5 or 6 months with cuts in funding, and what does this mean for the sector? This is your chance to submit questions, to hear the candidates on this stage talk about what their platform for the arts and culture sector are going to be, what are their own interests in the arts, what are their own proclivities when it comes to doing stuff with their families or loved ones. We'll talk about all of that. Each candidate will have a half hour in this forum. I'll be moderating it. But again, it's really important that you register at Mass Creative, because you can also submit your questions that you would like answered. And I will be sitting down with that team, going through all the questions, folding my own into everything that the public submits.
So wait a second. So you interview, I don't know what the verb is, interview somebody for 30 and then the next candidate?
I think we're still kind of working out the format, but yeah, it'll be conversations with all the candidates.
I think it's terrific.
This became so key back when, after Mayor Menino, and he was succeeded by Marty Walsh, there was a huge forum for all the candidates who were running in that election. And out of that became, basically told City Hall that there was an investment in arts and culture here in this city, and there had never been an arts cabinet position until after that debate. So it was the arts community holding City Hall to account, and it did change things. So I'm so glad that they are doing this forum.
And you know this better than anybody with whom we speak, is Mark Volpe, the former guy who ran the BSO, wonderful, wonderful guy, wrote a book, more a textbook than a book. We had him on about how the rest of the Western world, well, not only the Western world, the East, all the world supports the arts governments as compared to the United States. And even with the pitifully low level of support, as you say, a lot of that is going to disappear if Trump should have his way. So it does shift the burden back to local leaders. So as you said at the time, I think it's great you're doing this thing. Is it going to be streamed, do you know, or is it people have to show up?
That I don't know, because I also just signed on to this not too long ago, so I'm still getting into details, but that's a great question that I will ask them, because
I bet it is.
If they can stream it, I think that would be very, very
Well, if you
valuable.
let us know before the 30th, we will alert people. Oh, we'll see you before the 30th,
We'll see you before the 30th.
So let us know next time. You have anything else you want to say or not?
Nope.
Good. Well, that's perfect.
Well, there's not enough time to talk about the Stradivarius.
No.
This is incredible.
Well, let's do that next time.
Give us 30 seconds of the Stradivarius.
30 seconds.
Well, just like we keep seeing with repatriation and whatnot, this family that thought that their Stradivarius had been looted in Germany when a bank vault was looted just as the war was coming to an end, seems to have turned up and seems to be owned by a Japanese musician, which is really interesting because he is an artist for peace for UNESCO and performs in dire situations and for people who have been through terrible circumstances. But he's saying, no, I don't own that violin. I'm not giving it back, even though the evidence would suggest that he does have the violin that was looted, because the New York Times has compared it, and it has all the nicks and dings and scrapes that the original had that he has. So it's a pretty fascinating case.
It's a different violin.
He's
That's
claiming,
what he's claiming?
Well, now he's not claiming anything because now he's not talking to anybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's suspicious.
Let me tell you, I'm not giving it back either. I mean,
well, that's tough because it's probably worth $5 million.
I'm not giving it back
if you
either.
Bought it rightfully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll discuss.
So if he gives it back, Will they buy him another violin to replace his own?
I don't think that's how it works.
They're going to give him a free bow.
Okay.
Okay, good
Thank
to see you, Jared Bowen.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
We've been speaking with Jared Bowen, GBH News Executive Arts Editor and host of The Culture Show, which airs right here after us in 89.7 GBH. We'll talk to you again at 1:57 to get the update in The Culture Show. Jared, thank you. Coming up after this quick break, Zoran Mondami wants to open a chain of city-run grocery stores in New York. We'll talk with Tufts food policy analyst Corby Kummer about that. And we'll also to talk about whether Medicaid recipients, including those hundreds of thousands of people in nursing homes, can be relocated to replace the undocumented workers who are picking the food, supplying our food out on the farms of the Midwest and West Coast. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The recent war between Israel and Iran raised questions about Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. The 86-year-old was a potential Israeli target during the conflict, and now people are speculating about who or what will replace him when he dies.
It is quite possible that Ayatollah Khamenei was the last supreme leader of Iran.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. That story on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our
General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Cornerstone at Canton. They offer seniors the privacy and independence of their own apartment and a community with care and support options to help meet needs now and as they age in place. CornerstoneCanton.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Reminder, Martin and I were lucky enough to be invited on as guests on the Todd's Toddcast, a podcast called The Chuck Toddcast. It's available at thechucktoddcast.com, at youtube.com, at The Chuck Toddcast, wherever you get your Toddcast. And it went live this morning. We did an hour with him the other day, and it was huge fun.
It was fun.
And check it out, and he'll be on tomorrow, and we'll talk to him about it then, too. But we're joined now on Zoom by food policy analyst, multiple James Beard Award winner, Corby Kummer. He's the executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at the Tuss Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hey, Corby Kummer.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Hey, Corby. So, as everyone knows, the federal government now, ICE is going after people that are here in the country without documentation, even if they've committed no crimes here. But people have stepped in, mostly Republicans from states with a lot of farm workers, to say, you can't do this, you're going to decimate our business. Trump said he was going to lay off the farm workers and some of the restaurant workers, and he seems to have changed his mind. So talk to us about how important people who are immigrants are to the farming industry out mostly in the Midwest and the West.
You know, they're crucial to farms, and if ICE goes after farm laborers, especially in California and Florida, there will be unharvested crops and huge increases in prices of Florida tomatoes, in prices of all of the fruit and produce and nuts we eat from California. So Trump has said, I'm not going to go after farms. But just yesterday, the Secretary of the United States Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, said, the president and I are absolutely aligned on no amnesty for illegal immigrants. We're not going to pardon anybody. We're not going to exempt anybody. And the mass deportations are going to continue so that we have a 100% American workforce, which is pretty completely unrealistic because farmers cannot hire Americans. They don't want these jobs.
Okay, well, hold on. Brooke Rollins has a solution to this whole problem.
She did, brilliant solution.
Yeah, so we're going to play a little sound from Brooke Rollins. She's the Secretary of Agriculture, talking about her solution to replace farm workers who've been deported or face deportation. Here it is.
Ultimately, the answer on this is automation, also some reform within the current governing structure. And then also, when you think about, there are 34 million able-bodied adults in our Medicaid program. There are plenty of workers in America. But
I don't know where she gets the 34 million able-bodied adults, but in any case, her plan apparently, a lot of people that are on Medicaid are in nursing homes. That's what pays for their bills. So I guess her plan is to take people out of nursing homes, and
Pick some lettuce and then go back to the nurse.
to California or to Florida, or pick whatever they're going to pick, and then go back to the nursing home. It's crazy, I think.
Or it's able-bodied adults who are full-time caregivers for parents or children and aren't able to find jobs, or who actually are working jobs and don't have the time every month to file paperwork saying they're doing it. It's going to be a huge amount of paperwork harassment to stay on Medicaid. But robotics is a fairly absurd solution. There are more and more robotic pickers being manufactured in Starkville, Mississippi, site of the third most important agriculture college in the U.S. My Food Leaders Fellowship at Aspen visited a lab that was making robotic pickers for string beans and for putting row crops in. So there's a lot of automation, but the idea that robots are going to start replacing the massive amounts of labor required in California and Florida is completely nuts. It's just decades off.
I don't want to talk about robots. I want to return to this Medicaid thing. This is one of the most, the fact that this woman can leave her house this morning, not too embarrassed to be seen by other human beings. So what happens, as Marjorie says, is Trump is obviously contacted a few weeks ago by big agribusiness and by major restaurant chains saying, you got to spare these people. He, of course, agrees to it. Then Stephen Miller says, you can't agree to it. And he switches his position. And then this poor woman, can you imagine standing up, Corby, and saying, Medicaid, people on Medicaid who are able-bodied are going to go pick the lettuce. And by the way, for those who don't know, 40% of the farm workers, correct me if I'm wrong, Corby, in this country are undocumented, which means somewhere in the neighborhood, 700,000 people? Yeah. We're going to deport them. We're going to replace them with robots and Medicaid recipients, and all is going to be, it's insane.
By the way,
Chief of Staff... The chief of staff of combined Medicare and Medicaid services dared to show her face at the Aspen Ideas Festival about a week and a half ago. And under constant grilling by Elizabeth Cohen, a health reporter for CNN and The Times, who kept saying, so how many people are going to be thrown off Medicaid? 200, 20 million? She kept saying, we're just asking them to re-engage with the community, because if they go out and get a job, they're going to be more rooted in the community. That's all they have to do. We're only helping local communities. It was, the most incredible kind of doublespeak. But yes, she had the effrontery to say that. She didn't address farm workers. And 22% of restaurant laborers have been born outside this country, and many of them undocumented. And they're not showing up for work.
And on top
they're not
of that,
getting on the subway. They're afraid of being snatched.
I think the number is between 60 and 70. I think it's 70% of people on Medicaid already are working. They already have jobs. So it's just not enough to...
Well, in all fairness, Marjorie, you got to think outside the box. Yep. You do your job if you're a Medicaid recipient. After work, you pick lettuce for an hour or two. And then you go... Again, the fact that people are not reacting to this, forget.
Well, also you have to be transported to the places where the lettuce is.
A Medicaid person will drive you. That's what they'll do.
They may have to fly you, because a lot of this is out in the Midwest.
He mentioned restaurants.
Florida.
We had a conversation the other day with this woman, Corby, Cecilia Lizotte, who's the chef and owner of Suya Joint Restaurant in Boston, and the sister of Paul Dama, who basically was the chief worker there. Dama was detained by ICE on Father's Day on his way to church. And here is what Cecilia had to say about her situation and about her brother.
On a daily basis, when we post asking for request help, that's what I'm seeing, where, yes, they said that they're going after criminals. They're going after people that have more offense than what it is that Paul has. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing others, even just speaking with Paul, where he is, there are a few people, I was just at work and they picked me up, and their record is clean. There's nothing.
By the way, he has a hearing tomorrow. He's detained. And Corby, the reason we wanted to bring these up with you, beyond the obvious reasons, Marjorie and I were remarking yesterday as we couldn't believe how little spontaneous reaction there was in this country to Trump signing this incredible piece of legislation on Friday. And I guess a variation on the theme is, are farm businesses, farmers who own these places, restaurateurs, restaurant associations, are they going to rise up in response to this? Or are they just going to hope that behind the scenes they can lobby some powerful Trump people and get them to do yet another flip-flop?
Well, because it's what the farmers associations thought they had. They had a promise from Trump, we're not going to go after your farm workers. And then he reverses it. There was a very good quote from a restaurant owner in Boston who said, just as your guest did, sentiment that ICE was looking for the bad guys. As long as you kept your nose clean and paid your taxes, you'd be okay. Now they're just looking for the Spanish speakers willing to humble themselves and work hard at any task to make a better life for their families.
Okay, Corby Kummer, are you ready to move on from this?
And by the way, if you pay attention, I know a lot of people don't, and they turn off the news, Trump continues to say it's all the rapists and the murderers first. We don't focus on these people at all. But if you spend even a minute reading the news, the vast majority of people who are being detained and deported are people who live next door to you, who've done nothing wrong except come to this country to try to provide from their family or escape violence. It's just unbelievable.
But it's that exact reason that people aren't rising up, because they're not tuning into the news and they don't know what's in the news.
Well, I think that's the same thing with Medicaid. When Republicans are asked about why they approved, millions of people losing their health care on Medicaid, they lie and they say it's all about waste, fraud, and corruption. And there's not, there is undoubtedly some waste, fraud, and corruption, but there's not millions and millions.
Trump said when he had Republican legislators before the vote at the White House, quote, there were no Medicaid cuts. They cut $1 trillion.
No Medicaid cuts. That's right.
In any case, talking to Corby Kummer.
So, Corby, let's talk about Mamdani, the guy that is possibly going to be the next mayor of New York. He calls himself a democratic socialist, and he's got a lot of progressive ideas like free child care and free grocery stores. So, what's the scoop on free?
No, not free grocery stores.
Not free grocery stores. City-owned grocery
stores.
City-owned grocery stores that would be presumably cheaper. What's the deal with the city-owned grocery stores?
I think it's a terrible and unrealistic idea, even though I want nothing more than for everyone in so-called food deserts to have access to fresh produce. But in New York, there isn't a problem with access. There are enough markets selling fresh produce for pretty much everybody to be able to get it. But what they don't have is the money. So what you need is to give people more money to buy fresh produce, not try to operate grocery stores, a very specialized, very tough business with 1 to 3% thin profit margins. It's just not something a big city is equipped to do. And a very thoughtful and good piece in The Atlantic about what experiments have been tried, like zero in big cities, because big cities haven't been the real food access problems. It's been rural areas, and even in rural areas, the community has to completely buy into this. What's needed is more money to buy produce, and with SNAP cuts and Medicaid cuts, there's going to be a lot less money to buy it. And one of the reasons I'm sort of coming out saying this is a dumb idea, even if his heart is in the right place, is that we all loved the Daily Table in Boston. And it was
and Central Square in Cambridge,
several of them, and Fields Corner, Upham's Corner in Roxbury, and this had subsidized much lower cost produce and the important grab and go items, which is what time pressed people who don't eat particularly healthy food need. It's because they don't have time. Let alone expertise. And by the way, the big beautiful bill is cutting all SNAP education, which has been crucial to helping people change their eating habits for the better. So another reason the urban markets are kind of a bad idea is that in Los Angeles, there was a city subsidized effort to get fresh produce into many, many bodegas, and it rotted. The bodegas, just people don't change their buying habits overnight. unless the price is heavily subsidized or the government is giving people money to buy produce, they're not going to change their buying patterns or particularly their eating habits.
So,
I'm sorry. What happened to the Daily Table? I wasn't aware that it's closed.
Closed a couple of months ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because why?
I have heard varying stories. I think it was leases they took out during COVID when there was lots of extra money going around for that kind of thing, and then that money dried up, and the subsidies they'd been counting on to stay in business and open these new locations ended, and the business model just couldn't work anymore. But boy, did they last a long time with tremendous amounts of work and ingenuity, and they couldn't make it go. I cannot imagine what a New York City effort would do except lose a ton of money. Just give that money to people who need fresh food so they can buy it.
We should just be clear, even though Corby, who knows much more than we do about subjects like this, has very strong feelings. A lot of people think he's talking about opening up a ton of grocery stores, nonprofits. He's talking about initially opening up one in each borough. And he said in response to a question, I think on a podcast the other day, and if they don't work out, then we'll move on to another solution. I'm not defending nor criticizing. I'm just saying
I liked that.
It's a limited pilot that he is talking about. So let's go from nonprofit to profit. I am as listeners know, a loyal Market Basket customer. I ask managers when I go to my Somerville store if they know what's going on. They all say respectfully, no, we wish we did. Privately, most of them say they're big fans of RDT, the good Artie, as Shirley Leung referred to him a few weeks ago, who won the battle a decade or so ago with his cousin. As of the moment, is losing the battle with his three sisters in the board of directors. He's on administrative leave for what's got to be at least 4 to 6 weeks so far. Do you have any idea what's going on behind the scenes here in this wildly successful supermarket chain?
Absolutely none. I think it was the Shirley Leung piece that went in depth about the issues as far as the Globe could tell, which had to do seemingly mostly with just plain control, and some of the tangential family members felt their share of the profits weren't as high as they could be. But the family wasn't saying they could manage it better. It was just a power grab. And all of the employees who, was it 2011?
13 or 11? I'm not sure yet.
2014, who were picketing in favor of the good RDT to get him to return because he manages it very well. You know, they won, but that the family would bring this up again, I don't know. I only know what the Globe speculated about, essentially just power and resentment, as opposed to the idea of better management in the family dispute.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about this quite fascinating story. By the way, Kara Baskin's got a very good piece in there begging them to all get along because she really likes going to Market Basket, and she's upset that they might...
And the lighting's suited for a police station at midnight.
That's pretty good line.
It's a really well-written piece. Talks about the music, the $6 rotisserie chicken, a staple in every...
By the way, it's a $5 rotisserie chicken, with all due respect, Kara.
Oh, it is?
Because I buy one every Saturday morning.
Okay, well, she says
$4.99.
$4.99, okay. Yep. And the anachronistic...
Lost leader. Always a lost leader.
Okay, so this is a fascinating story, and it looks so pretty, too, about planting buckwheat and all the flowers that buckwheat produces, but they call it a climate solution crop in one of your favorite publications, Civilese. Tell us about buckwheat.
I didn't think you'd like this story. I'm delighted you like it, Marjorie.
I do. I love this story.
I had no idea what the hell they were talking about, to be honest, but go ahead.
Buckwheat is a great cover crop for farms that grow wheat and standard grains. It spreads roots pretty deep into the soil. It crowds out weeds, and so it's a way of getting weeds off a field for a year or two. It's generally planted as rotation to give the earth a rest and to regenerate it, because there's all these wonderful roots that make humus, and humus the substrate of a wonderful loamy topsoil. So it's great, but also various places, including Washington State University's Bread Lab, and it didn't mention this, I would say the national leader has been the Land Institute in Salina, Kansas, have been trying to increase the market for buckwheat. Jim and I'm sure, grew up eating kasha varnishka.
As a matter of fact, I did.
Buckwheat.
Whoops, I didn't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. And
buckwheat
pancakes.
is wonderful. And pancakes.
Yeah.
And in Italy, pizzoccheri, the wonderfully named pizzoccheri, which are wide fettuccine-like noodles with beautiful brown speckles, because that's buckwheat. Buckwheat is a cold weather crop. So in the north of Italy, which wasn't good at growing wheat particularly, you can grow buckwheat. Also, the reason that Eastern European Jews ate it is because it grew in cold Eastern European and Ukrainian and Russian climates. So it was a very good subsistence grain. So it's a great grain, and the idea is it can be used for more food crops. Farmers already like it because it's so good for replenishing the nutrients in soil and land, but Washington State University Bread Lab and others are trying to create a market for it. So we should all go out and get buckwheat pasta, soba noodles in Japan, also cold weather climate. That is a great source of buckwheat noodles, and it's so nutty and toasty and great.
So my apologies in advance if you already said this, because I was trying to look up Eddie Murphy playing buckwheat on Saturday Night Live, which is one of his funniest deals, but I can't find it right now. Did you already say that part of the experimentation, or I don't know if that's the right word, but you'll know what I mean, that these buckwheat developers, farmers are doing is funded by grants from the federal government, which I assume are going to dry up? That's the future here, is it not?
Oh, yeah. You know, the USDA under Tom Vilsack, who had already served 2 tours of duty in Obama, there was so much carping when he was renamed by Biden, saying, he had his day, he's old hat, he's old news. He did so much work to help farmers transition to more sustainable methods. The whole farm to school program, which the Trump administration ridiculously cut because they say they want kids to eat better. That was a way of supporting local farms. And there's a piece in the Globe about a farmer in Lincoln who's just lost a tremendous amount of markets.
Yeah, he make a lot of business.
Yeah. So many farmers. Yeah, so this was federal funding cut to the local food for schools program, which is what I was just talking about. And there was indeed make more bang for your buckwheat. That was the name of a grant that the Washington State University Bread Lab got from the USDA. And it was supposed to go through all this year, 2025 was supposed to renew. It's a story of so many innovative grants that got immediately the rug pulled out from under these farmers, and no relief in sight.
Corby Kummer, very depressing. And the other thing that what is said in this story, which is not depressing, is that a single buckwheat plant can produce as many as 2,000 flowers. How about that?
That's pretty
They have
incredible.
a beautiful picture of the little white flowers on top of these buckwheat plants. So
you only need, it's not my area of
buckwheat in our
expertise.
backyard?
No, we need more Medicaid recipients picking buckwheat. I think, would you not agree there'd be a better country? Is Corby going? I guess he's
He was
going.
showing us the picture.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, that was a beautiful picture.
Oh.
Thank you,
Showing us
Corby.
the picture of the flowers.
Yeah, in color. It's beautiful. Yeah.
The whole idea that these people have the ability or time or desire to work on farms is nuts.
Hey, Corby, good to see you
Thank
as
you,
always.
Corby.
Kummer, that would be him. Thank you.
We have been speaking with Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, a Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and Senior Lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy.
Read this text quickly. This is a local angle on this
The
thing.
buckwheat hulls are sold locally as a mulch and a pot filler with great drainage. Wilson Farms sells it. That's up in Lexington.
It is.
Thank you for that information for the texter.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Okay, coming up after a quick break, our so-called Two More Things segment. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Trusted, local news.
Labor organizers gathered outside a Home Depot at Boston's South Bay Shopping Center to protest ICE.
GBH News.
The state's 2026 spending plan made it to Governor Healey's desk on time for the first time in nearly a decade.
Here for what matters to you.
Accommodations popular with Canadians are losing bookings because travelers are protesting the United States.
GBH 89.7, online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority. helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org. And Maine Maritime Museum. Their new exhibit, Upon That Isle in Maine, the story and works of Chris Van Dusen, explores original artwork from the children's book author and his connection to the Maine coast. MaineMaritimeMuseum.org.
Welcome to BPR, or welcome back to BPR, I guess I would say. Marjorie and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A reminder, yet again, we're pretty excited about this. We were lucky enough to be invited to be guests on Chuck's podcast, Chuck Todd's podcast, called the Chuck Toddcast. It's currently available. Drop today at thechucktoddcast.com or youtube.com/thechucktoddcast. Time for our big, beautiful Two More Things segment, where we take a couple of minutes to bring you two additional stories that didn't fit elsewhere in the 3-hour show. And Marjorie, as usual, gets to go first.
Okay,
Hi, Marjorie.
I'm going to start because we just saw Sue O'Connell. We thought she was here to talk about Karen Reed, but she was not here today. But she did cover the Karen Reed trial.
She
People
did.
asking all during the Karen, why were people so obsessed with the Karen Reed trial?
Yeah.
Why were people beside themselves over this? Well, I want to say Karen Reed has to step aside because Lizzie Borden, the crime happened in my hometown, Fall River, Mass, 133 years ago. Well, Monster, season 3, doesn't have a season death. That's on Netflix, a show about horrible things on Netflix. But season 4 already is in the works and is going to be focusing the whole season on Lizzie Borden. That's the case of Lizzie Borden, who took an axe and gave her father 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her mother 41.
Aren't you related to her or something?
No. My cousins used to live in the house. She moved to after the murder.
That's what it was, okay.
She killed the stepmother first. So listen to this.
Allegedly, I think.
Allegedly. She was acquitted, but everybody knows she did it. Okay. Anyway, there have been more than 20 books written about Lizzie Borden. The most recent one was in 2019. There was another one in 2016. There have been 4 different movies.
Fine.
Elizabeth Montgomery, remember her from Bewitched?
Bewitched.
She played Lizzie in the 75 movie.
That's
then there was the Lizzie Borden Took an Axe movie, which became the miniseries, the Lizzie Borden Chronicles. That was in 2015. This happened in 1892. Then we have Lizzie, the movie in 2018, and GBH here. She was featured in American Experience. We did a big thing.
Do you know who played her in American Experience? Julia Child. Played Lizzie Borden.
That's a good one, Jim. And Jared Bowen just told me that Lizzie Borden, the musical.
There's a musical?
Yes, the musical. So I think that, as I said before, we are fascinated by these supposedly unsolved crimes, although I think everybody knows that Lizzie Borden did it. But I mentioned, Jim, we have to go out on this. The Chad Mitchell Trio performed the 1963 smash hit all about Lizzie Borden, who gave her stepmother 40 whacks. And then
There's a song?
There is a song.
I never
Here's
heard
the
the
Chad
song.
Mitchell Trio. Here we go.
Yesterday in Old Fall River, Mr. Andrew Borden died, and he got his daughter Lizzie on a charge of homicide. Some folks say she didn't do it, and others say of course she did. But they all agree Miss Lizzie B was a problem kind of kid. 'Cause you can't chop your papa up in Massachusetts, not even if it's planned as a surprise. A surprise! No, you can't chop your papa up in Massachusetts. You know how neighbors love to criticize.
And then we're going to...
What a great chorus.
We're going to wrap this up with a little sound of the axe doing its deed. There you go.
Well, that was not a major contribution. Can we get back to the song? You can't chop your papa up in Massachusetts.
You cannot.
Have you ever heard of this? You're related to her.
I'm not related to her. My cousin, the crime was committed on 2nd Street in Fall River.
Okay, fine.
And then she moved after the crime because she had a lot of money. She moved after to
Why'd she have a lot of money?
Because he was a rich guy, but that's why she killed him. The theory was the guy that was chopped into 1 million pieces. Actually, it wasn't 40 whacks. I think it was 19 whacks for the stepmother and 10 or 11 for Andrew. They had pictures of the bodies of the Fall River Historical Society. We spent a lot of time there. I've taken up the whole thing.
No, but you were so excited about this. Why would I want to interrupt with talking about how they're cutting Medicaid for 17 million people?
Right,
I don't want to ruin the mood.
Then I'll tell you what we'll do. The point is that we have been obsessed with this crime for 133 years. More than 20 books.
What was your point? That she was like the forerunner? She set the stage for a Karen Reed kind of thing?
She set the stage. So why don't we go out one more time on the Chad Mitchell Trio, as long as you're not going to talk, Jim. This is their 63 smash hit, topped the billboards back in 63.
Okay, fine.
And of course, it's called Lizzie Borden.
Yesterday in Old Fall River, Mr. Andrew Borden died, and he got his daughter Lizzie on a charge of homicide. Some folks say she didn't do it, and others say of course she did. But they all agree Miss Lizzie B was a problem kind of kid. 'Cause you can't chop your papa up in Massachusetts, not even if it's planned as a surprise. A surprise! No, you can't chop your papa up in Massachusetts. You know how neighbors love to criticize.
Okay, if you want to chop your papa up, you got to go to Rhode Island or New Hampshire. I guess that's the line. Anyway, after the 1 o'clock news, naturalist, author, pride of Hancock, New Hampshire, Sy Montgomery is next for the afternoon zoo.
GBH thanks all of our members whose gifts help power this station. And there are so many different ways to make that gift. Learn more about ways you can make an impact online at gbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you and Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 1st at New England Conservatory. mmb.international. And Rockland Trust Bank, committed to helping individuals and local businesses work towards their financial goals by providing financial advice and resources. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head of Hour 3 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. It's Naturalist and Animal Authority Sy Montgomery, back for another edition of Afternoon Zoo. She'll tell us everything you need to know ahead of puffin breeding season in Maine. And new research into a pod of orcas shows, 1, that they try to share their food with humans, and 2, that they use kelp to clean each other, or as Marjorie would describe it, washing their pits, bits, holes, and souls.
Marjorie Egan. Then after that, we just couldn't wait till tomorrow. So it's an early edition of Am I the A-Hole? This week, Cat's Got Your Tongue. A boyfriend is grossed out by his partner's propensity for kissing their cat on the mouth and then wanting to kiss him. Who's the a-hole? The boyfriend, the girlfriend, or the poor, suffering cat caught in the middle of sparring parents? Call or text next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Today, President Trump released a new batch of tariff letters. The documents shared on Truth Social assign new tariff rates to the Philippines, Brunei, Moldova, Algeria, Iraq, and Libya, set to go into effect August 1st. The U.S. buys relatively little from these countries. The biggest exporters that the U.S. has issued letters for so far are Japan and South Korea, and those came on Monday. Search operations are stretched for miles in the flood-ravaged Hill Country region of Texas. More than 160 people could still be missing from the 4th of July weekend flash floods. Local authorities are being peppered with questions about whether flood warnings could have been issued sooner. At a news conference today, Kirk County Sheriff Larry Latha promised transparency.
Those questions are going to be answered. I believe those questions need to be answered to the family of the missed loved ones, to the public, to the people that put me in this office. Those need to be, and I want that answer, and we're going to get that answer. And I know that's going to be asked over and over. Please understand that. We're not running. We're not going to hide from everything. That's going to be checked into.
More than 100 lives have been lost statewide. NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran brings us the story of one of the many flood survivors who've been sharing their accounts of what they did to stay alive.
The current of the Guadalupe River pushed Taylor Bergman and the woman he considers his mother into a tree.
I didn't think I would drown because I'm so tall, but I thought my mom was going to die in front of me.
They were trying to evacuate in the early morning, but they ran out of time. They clung to the tree for an hour. The mom's boyfriend and the family dog were swept by the strong current. It was pitch black. Bergman could not see anything. He could only hear the neighbors screaming for help. Fortunately, everyone was eventually accounted for. Bergman says he'll never live by the river again. Sergio Martinez Beltran, NPR News, Kerr County, Texas.
The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia launched another record number of drones at Ukraine, as well as missiles targeting the far western region near Poland. NPR's Joannika Kissis reports Russia has been stepping up airstrikes on Ukrainian cities in the last few months.
Ukraine's Air Force said Russia used nearly 730 Iranian-designed drones in the airstrikes. Most targeted Lutsk, a cobblestone city in western Ukraine known for its famous castle. City officials called it the most intense Russian attack on Lutsk since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. Ukraine's military says Russia is using 10 times more attack drones in airstrikes on Ukraine than it did last year. President Trump says his administration will send more defensive weapons to Ukraine, and Europe is drafting new sanctions on Russia. Joannika Kissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Department of Homeland Security has issued a subpoena to Harvard University today demanding documents related to alleged misconduct by international students and the school's compliance with federal immigration law. The Crimson reports that the subpoena issued by Immigration Customs Enforcement calls on Harvard to produce records, communications, and other documents related to the enforcement of immigration laws dating back to January 2020. No word yet on if Harvard will comply. Meanwhile, the Trump administration also says that Harvard no longer meets accreditation standards. Residents of Marblehead have said thanks but no thanks to the MBTA Communities Act. The item reports that voters at a town meeting rejected the proposal that had previously been approved by council members. It would have brought Marblehead zoning into compliance with the Communities Act, but the measure fell 345 votes short of passage. 41% of the town's nearly 17,000 registered voters took part. Well, for the first and only time this season, the Inter Miami Football Club will come north tonight to Gillette Stadium to play the New England Revolution. Fans interested in seeing Lionel Messi, the Argentinian superstar in Foxborough, have their chance. The match is scheduled to start at 7:30, and at last check, there were some tickets still available. The only other time this season these clubs will meet is on October 4th down at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. If you're going to Gillette, don't make a Messi of the place. Yuck. 73 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Subaru. The new Forester Hybrid offers symmetrical all-wheel drive and up to 581 miles per tank. Part of the new Forester Hybrid family of SUVs. More at Subaru.com/Forester Hybrid. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And quick programming note, we're getting a lot of texts about Lizzie Borden. Jim, I just want to let you know.
Well, you were extraordinarily talented.
I was extraordinary. I'm into it.
Good.
Earlier this week, we spoke with former Meet the Press host Chuck Todd for his Toddcast, a long conversation among the three of us about journalism, democracy, and national and local politics. You can get it online if you want to hear it. It was posted today. You can watch it or listen to it, the chucktoddcast.com or youtube.com at the Chuck Toddcast. Ready to go, Jim?
I'm not ready to go because I have a question for you. I ask you this all the time. You just said between the three of us.
Among the three of us.
Why is it, you said among the three of us. Why is it not between the three of us again?
Because between is between two things.
Just two.
And if it's more than
among
two.
Among is more than two?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in any case, we're joined now on Zoom by the pride of Hancock, New Hampshire, and probably John Hancock, now come to think of it, naturalist and author Sy Montgomery. Her latest book is wonderful. It's called What the Chicken Knows, a New Appreciation of the World's Most Familiar Bird. Hello, Sy Montgomery.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie, and you are wonderful.
Well, you're pretty good yourself there, Sy.
So Sy Montgomery, you wrote the wonderful book, The Soul of an Octopus. You've written many wonderful books. So you are an expert on octopus because you had a relationship with an octopus at the aquarium. So tell us about how they go in with their 8 arms to look for food and prey.
Yeah, this is an amazing thing, and I've seen this in the wild as well. They get this expression on their faces when they're probing the crevices of coral where no fish can go. They flow their elastic arms into these little crevices and look for prey like a person fishing in their pocket for their keys. But they're not just using touch, they're using taste. They can taste with all of their body, including their eyelids if they have eyelids.
Imagine that, Jim. If you could taste with every part of
It
your
would
body.
be a dream come true in my case. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Right.
But they've just discovered something new about this, which is really, really cool. And this is, what is it about the prey that they're searching for that they actually can access with their chemoreceptive organs in their suckers. Their suckers are where these chemoreceptors, which are like our tongues, are most exquisitely concentrated. And remember, each giant Pacific octopus has 200 suckers on each of its 8 arms.
Wow.
And all of these suckers have thousands and thousands of these receptors. So they just found out that part of what they are tasting is not necessarily the critter itself, but the microbiome, or essentially the microbes on the surface of the thing that they are touching. And this is how octopuses, for example, can tell if this is just an icky dead crab that they don't want to eat or a delicious healthy live crab. And they can also tell when they're tending to their eggs, when they touch their eggs, they can tell, oh, my eggs are healthy and fine, or, ooh, these eggs are diseased. I better get rid of them before it affects the other babies in my chain of eggs. So really, really cool.
Sy, I'm sorry, you go ahead. My apologies. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, they may also use this to find suitable mates and detect whether other octopuses have diseases.
Wait a second, they taste their would-be mates? Is that what do they do?
Well, they touch them with their suckers. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on. One of the problems with octopus sex is that sometimes it's a dinner date.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, sometimes they do eat each other, which can be a problem.
Oh, my God.
So the male has to be super careful that his date isn't going to actually eat him.
So
and
the
sometimes
female...
they'll mate like 13 times, and he still gets eaten at the end.
Oh.
But at least he had 13 times before he got eaten. It's another way to look at
He
it.
was like, I'm really sore, go away.
Yeah.
Hey, this is the question that I'm sure I've asked you, and I'm embarrassed I don't know the answer. Do the octopus's arms, do they regenerate them if they're cut off, or do they not?
Yes, they do.
They do.
And they don't just regenerate the way lizard tails do. If you've ever seen a lizard who's lost his tail, if he grows a new tail, it's like, not as good as new. It's better than no tail.
But they what? Wait, you were finishing a sentence.
These guys, they regenerate it perfectly to
really?
the point that the males, they have a special arm they use essentially to place their spermatophore inside the female's mantle. And that's how you can tell if it's a male or female octopus if you look at it. And God forbid that should be cut off. But if that's cut off, it regenerates perfectly too.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, pretty cool.
I just have a quick aside question. Why would Mother Nature make it so that, because they're not the only animals that eat each other. I mean, the male eats the female eats the male after sex. Praying mantis do it. Other ones do it. So what was the thinking there on Mother Nature's, why?
Well, apparently, if you're about to take care of babies or get your eggs fertilized and go through that whole process, you need a lot of quick protein, and it helps to have a nice snack right then.
Okay. I thought you were going to tell me if they're going to take care of the babies, they didn't have to take time to take care of the male of the species.
That might be it.
Like the husband.
It's like smoking a cigarette afterwards. That's a variation on a
They do
on a
that.
theme.
I've seen that. The octopus takes out a little cigarette, yeah.
Or they smoke 8 at once. It's incredible. So can we move on to orcas? There are a lot of wonderful stories this week about orcas, some relating to their relationship with other orcas, some with humans that are incredible. Let's start with the orca to orca thing and what an orca might do with kelp vis-a-vis a fellow orca. What's that, Sy Montgomery?
Well, the question has arisen, how do you keep looking your best, if you're wearing a tuxedo, as all orcas are, when you don't have any hands to groom yourself or others? Well, it has now been discovered that, at least in one population, these orcas, who are, by the way, just giant dolphins. They're actually dolphins. What they do is they harvest this bull kelp, which is a seaweed. They snip it short, they balance it on their nose, and they carry it over to their friend. And then they put it between their bodies and they swidge it together. And it's like a nice sponge that gives both of them a lovely massage. And it can help them slough off like dead skin. It probably feels really good. And probably like brushing your daughter's hair, or like chimpanzees who will groom their closest friends, it probably is a great way to bond because everyone loves gentle touch.
So I'm embarrassed to say I'd never thought about how any animal kind of things that don't have hands do what these orcas are doing. Are there other living things in nature that don't have hands that do similar sorts of behaviors?
Well, snakes, happily, can just shed their skin.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
How do you get out of your sweater if you don't have hands, right? I mean, they have to shed their whole outside of, they're a tube, you know? How do you get that off? Well, what they do is often, it's a good place to find shed snakeskins in your wood pile. They'll slither between two logs, and it kind of helps pull off that sweater inside out. So when you find a snakeskin, it's always inside out.
So
like
go ahead. Sweater. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah. We have two more orca stories. The second one is about orcas apparently showing up with human beings that are in boats with their dead prey in their mouth to share with the people. It is
so cool. I flipped out when I saw this thing. And a lot of people, including Zoe, your producer, were like, so they're cats? Because as we know, sometimes cats bring us as a gift.
Yes.
Dead mouse.
A delightful eviscerated mouse.
Or bird. It's terrible.
Right, which you don't really want.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that the people who received these lovely gifts of, a dead baby seal or a dead penguin or even just some barfed up fish were not thrilled. But what's so interesting about this is that folks think that this is a way that these orcas are making contact with someone they realize is a fellow sentient being.
Yeah.
And what reminds me of is when explorers would go to a new land, they would always bring gifts to exchange with the new people that they met and kind of facilitate trade and make friends in that way. And that's what these orcas might be doing. And this is so cool. It's been documented 34 separate times. It has been seen in 4 oceans. It's been seen in Alaska, and California, New Zealand, Argentina, Norway. And so this isn't just something that's happening in one little area. And the other thing that strikes me is that they have not only brought them to people in boats, they've actually brought them to people who were swimming in the water. Can you imagine having this 33-foot-long whale come up to you in the water?
Oh, my God.
Hand you a dead seal? I mean, I would not know what the protocol is there. And sometimes they will even give it to people who are standing on land. And in many cases, when the person failed to pick up and appreciate the gift, they tried a second time to get the person to accept the gift.
So if this is, you didn't use this word, but it sounds like you're saying the experts, including you, are suggesting this may be some sort of an offering. Why has it only been seen 34 times then? I mean, because obviously there's a ton of orca-human, at least, exposure to each other. Why you remarked as if it was a lot. I'd remark and say it seemed to be few if it was a behavior as you described. I hope you understand what I'm saying there.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And it's a really good point because orcas are among the most studied marine mammals in the world.
I know that.
Yet, only, in the last few weeks have we had no fewer than 3 major new behavioral discoveries. So to me, what that says is there's a lot going on that we don't know. And even though there's plenty of cases in which we've, had interactions with orcas, there could be a lot happening that just hasn't been seen before. It's also true that orcas fall prey to fads. And remember the time when
boat
orcas
attacks.
were sinking boats?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. That was weird.
Other orcas suddenly got excited about, actually other dolphins have been excited about, suddenly everyone is swimming around with a hat on their head, a dead fish. This was like a fad.
We talked to you about that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows? This could be something that has just recently culturally arisen in orcas, or it could be something that has been going on, but people didn't realize what was actually happening, and there was no one collecting all of these instances and saying, wow, this isn't just some one-off weird behavior.
Talking to Sy Montgomery.
Here's one that's kind of disturbing, though, is they're now going after great white sharks.
They being orcas.
Orcas, and
Yeah.
I wonder why it's happening now, because orcas and sharks have been in the water together for a long time. Why now? Or are we just finding out about it now?
It could be we're just finding out about it, or it could be that the oceans right now are changing so rapidly that animals have to change their culture if they're going to survive. So that might be it. Did you see the National Geographic footage of this 60-year-old grandmother orca attacking a great white shark?
No.
It was really scary. The animal comes at the fish like a rocket, and bam, and it crushes this huge shark's ribs. But the other thing that people think is so interesting about this is that frequently the orcas will kill the animal and just take the liver, and with surgical precision. And I've actually seen this in another species. I've seen this happen with snakes in Manitoba, and crows will kill the snakes. These are little harmless garter snakes, and they hibernate in enormous numbers, like 18,000 snakes will hibernate together in underground sinks, and then they rise up in the spring. And the crows will attack them, just attack them in the liver and pull the liver out and kill it that way. So apparently there's a lot of animals out there who like liver.
Yeah.
Can I just, while you were talking.
I'm looking at the orca thing too.
The title is Orca Grandmother Defeats Great White Shark with One Blow. It is really violent. And the fact that there was a photographer who captured this is just stunning for National Geographic. I should know this, but everybody's talking about the 50th anniversary of Jaws. We talked to Jared Bowen the other day because I think he had Peter Benchley's wife on his show. Peter Benchley obviously wrote Jaws, and how Peter Benchley regretted the fact that great whites became the enemy essentially because of his book and obviously the subsequent movie. And I guess he spent the rest of his life campaigning for the preservation of great whites. Beyond, it seems to me, being at risk because orcas are eating them, are great whites at risk generally, even before we learned about this orca attack deal?
Oh, absolutely. People are terrified of them. People erect all kinds of, shark nets around swimming areas that gets them caught. They get caught and they can't breathe. There used to be like derbies to kill them because, wolves and like all the other predators, we hated them because they liked the same stuff we liked. So, and they're so important for the ecosystem. The top predators, if you remove those top predators, you cause what's called a trophic cascade, which is a cascade of ecological disaster. And it affects everything on land down to the soil microbes. And in the sea, which to so many of us is a great unknown anyway, what a disaster this could cause. And so people are worried that great whites are now being preyed upon by these very smart apex predators and orcas. Us and the orcas are the great white's enemy, and folks are worried what that's going to do to the balance of the sea.
Turn to Sy Montgomery.
So there are these, they call them parasitic bird with no parents. Talk about this. They're left, these little eggs are left by the mothers in just random nests, and the birds grow up all by themselves. Tell us the story.
Cowbirds, right?
Yeah, we have brown-headed cowbirds. I'm sure you've seen them. And cuckoos are also nest parasites. There's other birds that are nest parasites, and they've adopted this strategy so that they just drop their egg in someone else's nest, like you used to leave a baby in a basket on the, at the nunnery, and have someone else bring them up. But those baby birds have a big problem, and that is, how do they know who they are, and how do they find a mate? How do they find a group of birds to migrate south with? So this is a problem. Birds, all of us, including humans, have inborn instincts, but people didn't know what instinct was kicking in. And for a while, they thought that the cowbird's parents were lurking nearby to reunite and keeping an eye on that baby that they laid in someone else's nest. They thought this from blood samples that made it look like that was happening, but apparently this new study shows that's not it. Apparently this new study shows that they are innately attracted to the chatter of specifically female cowbirds. And this work was actually done with a different species of cowbird. It's imprinting, so they're kind of born with that desire, which sounds like, oh geez, they don't learn it, how stupid are they? Not so. I looked up a bunch of stuff on imprinting recently, and there are so many creatures who are kind of born with this instinct to focus on, like ducklings, the first thing they see moving. But I read a story that said that humans also imprint. And weirdly, one of the things that we're imprinted on is an attraction to other people who share our mother's eye color.
That's incredible.
Wow.
Just
really?
bizarre. I mean, I'm sure if they have leprosy or a terrible personality or a person just rolled in old fish, that would overcome the attraction of the eye color like your mother's. But yeah, there actually was a paper on that.
Wait a second. Didn't one of the chickens in your latest chicken book imprint on you? Aren't I right about that?
They were all imprinted on me. They were all imprinted on me. I was an honorary chicken.
That's my recollection. So Sy Montgomery, we just mentioned one of our colleagues, Zoe Matthews, who's a great admirer and friend of yours. Apparently, you were going on a joint expedition on July 18th. What would that expedition be, Sy Montgomery?
Oh man, I wish you could come.
I wish.
Oh my gosh! But people can. This is an expedition to Eastern Egg Rock, 6 miles off. Project Puffin Watch. So we're going to get to see these great puffins, and we're going to become members of the Pufferazzi and take pictures of the puffins and the baby puffins, who are adorably called pufflings. And we're witnessing this great comeback of puffins who were eradicated from pretty much everywhere in America due to the ladies' craze in feathered hats in the 1800s. This pretty much wiped out all the puffins everywhere.
You describe them because they're really cute. What do they look like?
Oh my gosh, they're called like the parrots of the sea or the clowns of the ocean. They have these beautiful thick bills. I mean, being thick-billed myself, I can brag about it.
Oh, please.
They have beautiful colors, orange and yellow and red. They have black caps and white faces. Their eyes are outlined in red. They have dark blue eyes. and they're adorable. They're only like a foot tall.
Yeah.
I've seen plushies of puffins that were bigger than the actual puffins. They're surprisingly small, and they're burrow-dwelling birds. So they spend most of their time at sea, during which time they actually shed much of that beak. Their beak is much smaller, and it's not colorful at all most of their lives when they're at sea. No one knew where they were at sea until very recently. They now know that our main puffins are, first they're going north to Canada, and then they're actually off the coast of New York and New Jersey, but no one knew where they were because they're really dully colored. And they were just almost entirely wiped out until this graduate student named Steve Kress, who's one of my heroes, came up with the idea of reintroducing them and getting them to nest at their old sites again by putting out like fake puffins, by putting out decoys. Because just like when you pass a bakery with a long line, or you see a restaurant that's really hard to get into, you think, that must be a great place to be. I want to be there. Puffins felt that way too. And when they would fly over a ledge that would be like great for nesting, they'd be like, there's no other puffins there. I think I'll go somewhere else. So he set up these decoys and also set out speakers that would play their calls. And their calls are amazing. Have you ever heard their calls?
No.
When they're in their burrow, they say something like, they sound like a lawnmower or something. You would not think this would come out of this cute little bird. And so the puffins flying over would think like, this might not be a bad place. And now there are thousands of them where there used to be just a dozen or so. It's a great, great success story.
Let me tell you, the first person that's told us this story, I don't know if you know him, Derek Jackson, used to be a columnist for the Boston Globe. He left that, and he's essentially dedicated a part of his life to the work of the restoration of the puffin. He writes about Kress as well. And the only reason I bring him up is because Marjorie said describe what they look like. A photograph that sits on my desk at home that Derek gave Marjorie and me both.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful front photograph head-on of a puffin that he took with 8 or 10 fish in its beak at the same time, and it is truly one of the great photographs ever. If you Google Derek Jackson and puffin, it'll come up. And when you and Zoe get back, you'll debrief us on what you found and what you saw, and we can't wait, Sy Montgomery.
Oh, great. Well, I can't wait either. I've done this before, and I can't get enough of puffins.
Fabulous. We'll look forward to it. Sy Montgomery, thanks so much.
We've been speaking with the naturalist and author Sy Montgomery, and we love talking to her. Coming up after this quick break, we'll continue the animal chatter until the end of the show with a cat-themed Am I the A-hole scenario. Usually we do this on Thursday. Today we're doing it, obviously, on Wednesday. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, the Trump administration is subpoenaing Harvard for its records on international students. You can now keep your shoes on at U.S. airports, including Logan. And a new proposal would track vehicle mileage and emissions to help Massachusetts meet its climate goals. But some are warning of privacy and equity concerns. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Mass General Brigham. Their leading heart and vascular specialists are committed to providing breakthrough care to patients with cutting-edge research and innovative treatments. Learn more at massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Boston Children's Museum, featuring 100 Acre Wood, a Winnie the Pooh experience. Visitors can sort honey and acorns with Pooh Bear and Piglet, bounce with Roo and Tigger, or read one of Owl's favorite books. Tickets at bostonchildrensmuseum.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live from the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBHnews. It's not Thursday, but since I am taking off tomorrow, Julia Kayam's going to be sitting in with Marjorie to slither around Inman Square. It's time for an advance of Am I the A-hole?
Yep.
This week's prompt comes to us from The Guardian, where a reluctant cat owner writes in with a pressing problem. His girlfriend loves to give their little cat, the cat's name is Ethel, by the way, affectionate kisses. As Daryl, the boyfriend, writes, Ethel's, quote, a cat who's just licked her own bum or rolled around in poo. The girlfriend, Georgia, doesn't get the boyfriend's problem. She argues the cats are actually quite clean. They devote more time to self-grooming than most humans do on an average day. And as any cat owner will tell you, setting boundaries with cats about things like personal space is almost always a losing battle. But does Daryl have a point? He does not want, what's her name? Georgia, to kiss him with the same, I guess he would say, dirty mouth that she has just used to kiss Ethel, who is the cat. Or is his girlfriend the jerk for insisting she has the right to kiss whatever she wants, going from Ethel the cat directly to Daryl's reluctant lips? It's quite simple. The question is at 877-301-8970. So who is the a-hole here, Marjorie Egan?
Well, I think that Georgia, if Daryl doesn't want her,
I'm stunned.
That if Daryl does not like the idea of kissing her on the lips after she's been kissing the cat, I get it, I get it. Cats groom themselves very well, but they groom themselves with their mouths, with which they pick up a lot of those germs. You know what I mean?
So if you kiss the cat, you can't kiss the partner?
Well, the partner doesn't like it, right? You want to, if you're going to get kissed, you want to be enthusiastic about it. You don't want to be kissed by someone you think.
Yeah, but there's a problem here.
What?
In light of the fact that most cats and dogs are licking their crotches like almost full time.
That's right.
And doing whatever they do outside with other excrement or that sort of thing. Then you can never kiss your cat or your dog because it's essentially I'm serious. It's a non-stop behavior in terms of, so you got to decide, are you just going to man or woman up and do it or not?
Or what Georgia can do is if she wants to make out with the cat, she can go in and wipe her mouth off after she does it, and then she can kiss her boyfriend.
Make out with the cat?
Well, that's what she's doing, isn't it?
She kisses the cat.
She kisses the cat.
Did you ever kiss Tyre the Pea, best dog from C to C?
Not on the mouth.
You did?
No.
Okay. Okay, well, that's really sad because I thought you were really close.
Are you kissing your kids' dogs on the mouth?
Yeah, we actually usually French kiss. We do it because I really, of course. Thank you very much. 877-301-8970. So who's the a-hole here? Is it Georgia who kisses the cat on the mouth and then wants to kiss the boyfriend on the mouth? Or is it the boyfriend, whose name is Daryl, who says, don't kiss me after you've kissed the cat, who has been doing odd things with its own mouth and tongue? 877-301-8970.
Now, it is important to listen to feedback from your cat, as our staff has reminded us. This is the sound they'll make if the extra kisses and attention are appreciated.
Oh, that went well. Okay, thank you. That really was not. These are generally not that helpful.
Okay, that's not the right sound.
Okay, good. Doesn't matter.
Let's try that one again.
Why don't you call some other sound that's not the right
This
sound?
is the sound they'll make if the extra kisses and attention are appreciated. Let's try this again.
Okay. Okay.
What happened?
Okay.
That's the wrong
Well, luckily
sound.
the show's almost over.
Okay.
877-301-8970 is a pretty straightforward kind of problem. And you know what the other thing, by the way, the reason why the husband is the a-hole, if it turns out you're not into kissing your partner because of this cat thing, then don't have a damn cat. I mean, that's what they do. And don't you snuggle up to your cat or your dog all the time?
There's something called cat huffing.
Yeah, Zoe told us about this.
Yeah, this is from Pet Finder. And I can understand this. It's burying one's face in the cat's body, usually the neck or the belly, and inhaling the kitty scent. And what it does is gives you a little bit of a kitty high because cats and kittens, they smell really delicious. They do self-groom themselves constantly so their fur is nice and clean and healthy. So if you want to do something, you can just sort of bury your face into the cat's neck or body, and that should be sufficient. That's not kissing the cat on the mouth and then go kissing your
You seem to be
boyfriend.
a little obsessed with this kissing on the mouth thing.
Well, don't you think it's a little odd?
I don't think most. Do you know many people, cat or dog owners, who are kissing their pet on the mouth?
Well, that's what she's doing.
No, I'm
she's
not
also
100%
rubbing-
sure that's what she's doing.
They're also rubbing noses together, too. I mean, I think if you have a choice between kissing the cat or kissing the boyfriend, you want
You
a healthy
choose the cat.
relationship that you might go with the boyfriend instead of the cat. Yeah.
Okay, 877-301-8970 is the number. I'm sure everybody's had this experience at home, so share it with us. What are you laughing about?
Here's a person that says, the cat is the a-hole, and licking it.
That's good. Okay, let's go to Jean on, giving us an address on Beacon Street. You're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hey there, Jean.
Well, hey, so much. You remind me of my brother Larry, who was ace reporter at the Daily News back in the day. And you know what? I learned when I was 9 months pregnant not to reach into a kitty litter box.
That's
we
right.
only had dogs.
That's right.
And I reached in. I was, X amount of months pregnant, and the doctor and my husband, the doctor, and the doctor's wife, who was Italian, shocked and recoiled in horror because I could be infecting the unborn baby. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Cats are filthy.
Trichinosis or something. What is the disease? It's
That's
some disease,
eating
Jen.
raw pork, actually.
Well,
Marjorie.
there's something about...
No, it's worse than pica. It's worse than eating dirt. It's worse than leg poisoning. It's all of that stuff that I learned in home ec class. That physicians, I don't know, let's just scare the well.
Yeah, but Jean, with all due respect to all your friends who are doctors and all those people, and going in the litter is a little bit different.
Toxoplasma.
Fine. She's talking about going in the litter, though. Isn't that a little bit different than giving a little smooch to...
It was sand. I was at the beach, and I thought it was sand. We had just picked mussels off of a rock to cook that night.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we were doing like the, I'm on an island and I'm eating natural food, and I had no idea that you don't dip your hands into a kitty litter box.
Jean, it sounds like you've been waiting to make this call for decades, is the sense I get.
Yeah.
And we're really glad you did.
No, for actually 41 years. My daughter is now 41.
Jean, thanks for the call. We really appreciate it.
Along the lines of what Jean was talking about, one of the texters says, dump the girlfriend. She'll be dead of a cat carrier disease very soon. And then I think this is an insight from an anonymous texter. I think Daryl doesn't really want to kiss Georgia and is using the cat as an excuse because he'll probably be kissing someone else pretty soon.
Ooh.
Maybe was that from Spencer, or he'll be kissing Spencer?
We don't know what
I'm
it
not
is.
sure. It's too late. It's gone now.
877-301-8970 is the number. And I'm shocked, frankly, as a former big-time dog owner. That would be Marjorie Egan, Harry the P, best dog from C2C. I'm very surprised that she is saying the a-hole is the cat kissing.
You just said you weren't kissing your kids' dogs.
I do kiss them. I don't kiss them on the lips,
Well,
Marjorie.
exactly. That's the thing.
How do you know that? Where does it say that Georgia kissed Ethel on the lips?
In this
You
story,
made it up, didn't you?
Well, they say they rub
she made
their
it up,
noses together. She says she kisses Ethel about 20 times a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of kissing.
That is a lot of kissing.
Yeah,
Let's go. Zoe said not enough. Zoe's a big-time cat person. Lisa and Methuen, you are next on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thank you. My first time calling in.
Well, thank you.
I think that the woman is definitely the a-hole. And on this whole topic, cats and dogs, I believe it was like Lucy from Charlie Brown. I've got dog ears. I've been kissed by a dog. The cat.
Okay.
That's a pretty good one. Hey, Lisa, thanks for your first call. We really appreciate it.
She does say they rub their noses together.
Rubbing noses together is a whole different experience.
It is a different experience.
This is not like Ethel.
Cats
Wait a
have got
second.
those sandpaper-like tongues too. You ever been licked by a cat?
Yeah, they're
with
great. They're rough.
sandpaper-like tongues?
What's wrong with that?
Very rough. I think it's.
You have an this is an anti-cat kind of position on your part.
I like
it
cats.
is.
I like cats growing up.
When did you have a cat? You never had a cat.
I had 2 cats.
You did not.
Fat Boy and Boston Boy.
Is that really true?
Yes, it was true.
That is really embarrassing.
Yeah, Fat Boy was very fat. That's
Who named those dogs?
Fat Boy.
Who named those cats?
My mother named them.
She did.
I think she named them, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anonymous texter says, I will choose a kiss from my cat named Jim over a Jim Browdy kiss any day. Well, that's not very nice.
Well, Anonymous, I'll tell you, I'm not going to be kissing you anytime soon either, so don't worry about it.
Hello.
Well, thank you. Okay, fine. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Beth in the car. What do you think about this, Beth?
Hello.
Hello.
She is absolutely the a-hole.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Full disclosure, I don't like cats anyway, but besides that, she is the a-hole.
Why? But why? Explain it.
More than that, but you know what? More than that,
Yeah.
I really just wanted to say thank you for distracting us from the insanity of the world with this crazy conversation.
Well, that's very kind of you,
thank you.
actually. That's
There's
exactly
a lot of
the goal,
depressing
to tell
stuff
you the
going
truth.
on. Yeah.
Beth, thanks for the call. We appreciate it, even though I'm not with you on the who is the a-hole kind of thing. 877-301-8970 is the number.
There is only one thing you should be kissing on the mouth, says a texter, and that is your lover, the boyfriend or the girlfriend. I love pets, but I don't kiss them on the mouth. There you go.
Does anybody you know kiss their dog or cat on the mouth? I'm serious. I'm trying to figure out. Does anybody in the audience kiss their dog or cat on the mouth? You do? Is that your? And do you kiss that guy right after? She does. Well, apparently he's fine with it.
Well, that's his story. He's sticking to it.
He does. Is that what you said? He does too?
Okay.
Is that what he said?
So this is unusual. We have a couple here. They're both kissing the animals on the mouth.
And then
kissing
each other.
So a lot of love going on.
But if they're
there
happy,
in the household, I
we're
guess.
happy.
A lot of love going on. He's not so sure, actually. Did you see what he just gestured with his hand?
He looks pretty happy to me.
Lynn in the car. What do you think, Lynn?
Hello, Lynn in the car.
I loved my cats, but one of them actually bit me by accident.
Oh.
The next day, the finger swelled up.
Oh.
I went to the emergency room. The doctor put me on an intravenous antibiotic for 45 minutes. I had to go back the next day. I had to have x-rays, and I had to have my arm in a sling. And I couldn't move my hand. So the mouths are incredibly germ-ridden. Evidently, there's 4 or 5 diseases you can get just from their saliva. So do not mess with cat saliva.
I thought the next thing you were going to say is you had a cast, you lost your job, your family left you. I mean, that's a horrible story there, Lynn. We're sorry you lived through it.
It was not fun.
No, I'm sure it's not fun. Thank you. By the way, I'm not going to tell this whole story because it's really horrible. I thought it's where Lynn is going. If you heard, this is very rare, but if you heard stories where occasionally a dog licks the owner, a human's lips, even if the what do you call it?
Dog licks the human's
the adult
lips?
didn't want it, and occasionally it leads to like way worse than what Lynn described, like horrible body-eating disease. You ever heard of that thing?
No, I've not heard of that.
Yeah, like limb losing kind of thing.
Like the amoeba eating, brain eating kind of thing?
What?
Yeah, brain eating kind of thing.
You know, an anonymous texter made a wonderful point, which is a real compliment to our show, and we thank you. You're not going to get this kind of quality content on the Chuck Toddcast. That is true. That is true.
That's right.
That's true.
Okay.
The world is falling apart, and we're talking about making out with your cat.
Here's Zoe, who raises a great question.
Our Zoe?
She hasn't figured out, as a cat owner, why do they smell so good when they have undeniably the stinkiest tuna breath? How does it go from stinky tuna to roses and perfume?
By the way, we really should ask Zoe.
That's a great question. We should have asked that.
That is an incredible question.
Cats. Do you think Sy kisses cats?
I mean, she has interspecies relationship.
Yeah.
We always mention the soul of the octopus. I know we've said this before. Her relationship with that octopus at the New England Aquarium in this book that won all kinds of awards was that incredibly beautiful or not?
Yeah, it was incredible.
I mean, incredibly beautiful.
It was
and the
incredible.
octopus recognized her when she came to see it and all this kind of thing. Let's go to Lisa in Worcester. You're next on BPR. Hi, Lisa.
Hi there.
Hi there.
I used to work in an animal shelter for 7 years, and we used to have people come in, women who were pregnant, and surrender their cats because they were worried about getting toxoplasmosis.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that it's actually not that much of a worry as long as you wash your hands after cleaning the litter box. That you can get exposed to the parasite associated with toxoplasmosis by accidentally consuming cat feces. So either have your partner clean the litter box or clean the litter box and wash your hands. And I have 2 wonderful cats and wonderful twin daughters, and clean the litter box and never had an issue.
Well, clean the litter box and, for the most part, stay away from eating cat feces. I agree with that.
Oh, God.
Lisa, we are with you. Thank you for that contribution to the conversation. You know what? I haven't told you this. My older daughter bought her best friend a wedding gift, which is insanely expensive, like several $100s. Do you know it's a self-cleaning litter box? I don't know exactly how it works. I watched the video on Amazon. I'm embarrassed it was from Amazon or that sort of thing. But it literally picks up the crap, literally and figuratively.
Is that because of the pregnant women thing?
No, I think it was just like a wonderful little gadget to have at home. And she loves her friend.
Carries it out to the trash?
Carries it to the trash. And then the box licks the butt of the cat on the way out. I mean, I don't know. But it works. I mean, at least according to the ads kind of thing.
Technology marches on, Jim.
I can't, has there been one person who thought, the a-hole was the husband here?
No, not yet. Well, I think this person, this texter, gets right to the nub of the issue. Says, when your partner is grossed out by something you do, you should stop doing it.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, Melania hasn't left Trump, though, has she? So I think that's what they meant
Yeah,
there.
she does take trips with him. She's going to go out to Texas with him.
Here it is. Thank you, Kevin from Auburn. As an ER physician's assistant, I can tell you people's mouths are a lot more dangerous than dogs. I am totally...
How can that be?
Because he just said it, Kevin from Auburn.
Look at what dogs do when you take them out for a walk.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about having enthusiasm for, gross stuff.
I know some people who do that, Marjorie.
Yeah.
I want you to know. They work on other shows, not this show. They do. I've never outed them.
A dead bird. They love anything. If you find something that's dead, unfortunately, like a dead squirrel, dead bird, dead fish,
they eat it,
they roll in it. They want to roll in it. They roll in cigarette butts, and they roll in a lot of other things, too.
I had a girlfriend when I was in high school, came in with a dead squirrel in her mouth. Did I ever tell you that story? No, Biffy, thank you. Whoever said that, Zoe, is not my girlfriend. It was our former boss's best friend.
Okay.
Her name.
Nicole says, I think it depends on how the guy feels about double dipping. If he's fine with double dipping, he should be fine with cat dipping. So there you go. I mean, that is an excellent
By the way,
point.
before we get back to the calls, I want to say you commented on the term that Zoe alerted us to, cat huffing, which I'd never heard of.
Cat huffing.
But don't you do that with dogs too? And you bury your head in the fur of these animals, and more often than not, assuming you take care of it well and you wash it and keep it clean, it smells
but the difference between
spectacular.
dogs and cats is that cats do clean themselves.
Well,
dogs don't.
Yeah, I understand. I just said if someone washes the dog.
Yeah, okay.
Themselves so well, what are you worried about kissing the partner after they've made out with the cat?
Because you're not kissing the fur, you're kissing the nose or the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difference, Jim.
Okay, by the way, for whatever it's worth, the people who read the Guardian story, Marjorie often, when she's losing an argument on the MIBA hall, she makes up things that are not in the underlying story, including on the mouth thing. Let's go to Megan in Cambridge.
Okay, where's she kissing the cat?
What? On the butt. She's
not kissing the cat.
No, on the head. That's what, by the way.
They rub noses together.
I have kissed cats and dogs, I would say 100,000 times in my life. Every time it was on the base of the head. Isn't that where you kiss a non-human animal? Yeah, on the head, on the head, the front head thing.
Yeah, I think
What's that called?
I think
the front
she's
head
kissing
thing.
the cat in the mouth.
No,
and
she's
it's
not.
Out of control.
Okay. From the forehead. What is the front of an animal called?
Forehead.
Forehead.
Yeah.
Jamie's
they have
just mocking me.
Megan from Cambridge, what do you think?
Okay, good. Hi, Megan. What's up?
Hello. So, Jim, I'm with you.
Good.
I think the husband is a little germophobic.
Exactly.
Cats are cleaner, and human mouths are disgusting. And I'll tell you what, I have kissed my beloved Susie on the feet. Yes, I have.
On the feet?
On her little tiny ballerina feet. Yes, I have.
Oh, my goodness. Is she an outdoor cat or indoor cat?
No, indoor only. I keep the cat box immaculate. And obviously, I do not kiss her feet right when she gets out of the cat box.
That's a good move, Megan.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
Megan,
it's like a papal kind of behavior there, Megan.
Megan, do you also share ice cream with your dog if you have one? A lot of people, including Woody, the UPS
Texting about
driver,
that?
are saying they let their dog lick their ice cream cone at the same time that they're licking the ice cream cone. What do you think about that?
What do you think about that?
I'm not a dog person. Well, I love dogs. I just don't have them. I would do it.
Apparently so.
I would do it.
When was the last boyfriend you had, Megan? Exactly. I mean, it's fine. That's your choice. I am totally with you. If that's your choice, good for you. I support you 100%. Megan, thank you for the whatever the call there. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Here's an anonymous texter says, this is for my favorite quote from Airplane. Looks like I picked the wrong day to quit sniffing glue. This person says, looks like I picked the wrong day to quit huffing cats.
Hey, can we do this to make Marjorie smile? We have 3 more minutes in the show. Can we get that soundbite from Airplane just to make Marjorie smile big time? Her favorite quote from any movie ever. In the interim, do you have a text or you want to go to Lennon Stowe?
Lennon Stowe, thank you for calling.
Hey, Lennon Stowe. Hi.
Yeah, hi. I've called before. I'm the fellow that has Yoda, the dog.
Oh, yes. Hi, Len.
McDonald's.
Hi, Len.
Remember?
We do.
Yeah. So you have a pretty good idea where I'm going to come down.
I think
on
we
this.
do, yes.
And yeah.
Like,
And as a
share
matter
it with
of
us.
fact, yeah, sure. Well, like, for example, with ice cream, for example.
Yeah.
I'll get a cup of vanilla ice cream.
Sure.
Now, I don't let him lick the cup with
No.
me, but I take my finger and I put some ice cream on it, and I let him lick, my finger,
Yeah.
And, he likes to kiss me, and, I don't go kissing him on the mouth.
No.
But, if he kisses me, I just say, hey, look, Yoda, no Frenching with me.
Hey, it's
Just with your
Saturday
dog."
night. It's late. Who knows? No one will know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, with your dog friends, not with me. But I would go into some kind of paroxysm of fear. I'm not a germaphobe.
No.
And I once went out with a woman who had a dog, and she would not let the dog lick her face at all.
That's cruel.
So the dog licked me. Yeah, I know.
That's
the
beautiful.
dog would lick me.
It's great.
Yeah. And so she'd say, oh, here comes the love fest, because, the dog would be jumping up on me and licking my face. And I thought that was great,
Len, that was a beautiful, spirited call. That's exactly the kind of thing we were looking forward to. Len, thank you for the call. Okay, here's Marjorie's favorite soundbite. Was it Leslie Nielsen? Is that who is he?
No.
Lloyd
yeah,
Bridges.
Lloyd
Sorry.
Bridges, the
Lloyd
guy
Bridges.
that was a scuba diver in
Sea Hunt,
like
exactly.
a million years ago.
Here's Marjorie's favorite line in any movie ever.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
And after he's
You know what's great about that line?
His hair stands straight up on his head.
That's sort of like how you and I both feel about Best in Show, which I think is the funniest movie ever made, is you can hear the same line like 5,000 times. It's what's the great line from Jennifer Coolidge? She says, when she's dating the 100-year-old billionaire, she says, I like soup. He likes soup. We like talking. We like not talking.
We can sit here for hours and say nothing, and it's just a beautiful day. Yeah, the guy that she's talking to is like 110 years
and practically like zombified. Is he?
That's right.
Is he not?
Now, a texter wants to know if I would kiss Secretariat. Now, of course,
that is a whole other story.
That would be difficult. I might, but
she might move in with Secretariat.
Like a tremendous machine.
Exactly. Hey, Jared, have you ever had I don't even know. You don't have pets, right?
I don't now, but I grew up with lots of
Oh,
animals.
right. You're a farm kind of person, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You ever kiss like a jackal on the mouth or whatever? Did you ever kiss one of those?
Of course. If you are around animals, you do that. It's normal.
And would you kiss another human being after you had kissed a non-human animal?
Probably not. Maybe.
Oh,
exactly.
Who thinks about it though?
Well, apparently Ethel or whatever her name is, Georgia or somebody, or Lloyd Bridges thinks about it.
Ethel was the cat.
I mean, it's not painting a great picture to be on the sofa with the cat and then turning to the partner.
No. I think
that's actually a very good argument.
Yeah.
The image
That's
changes
right.
the whole
You
thing.
got the cat on one side and the boyfriend and girlfriend on the other side, going back and forth. I don't think that's the way you want to do it.
And in between, the cat is licking its behind, too, in between the embraces with the
they
human.
do that.
Okay, fine.
They do that. Okay.
Okay,
So what's on your show, Jared?
Yeah, what is that thing?
We're going to be speaking with Mfaniso Udafia about the latest in her UFOT family cycle, the play Kufre and Kwe. For people who need a reminder, she's done this 9-play cycle. They've been unfurled in Boston. We've been able to see this cycle, which has been really fun. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, wow.
And then Rob Pro-Black Gibbs, who has done,
really
he's
talented.
Boston's man of murals, authoring
fabulous.
the city. He'll be on about a new exhibition he has, along with his group Street Theory Collective. And Dr. Noel Trent of the Museum of African American History will talk about their newest shows and, of course, what they're facing with funding cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bet are they facing significant funding cuts?
Huge. They got hit very early and very hard.
What a surprise, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, Jared,
Thank you
I
for
forgot
being
for a
on my
second.
side there, Jared.
Jared,
I
it's
appreciate
wonderful
that.
to see you again. See
A
you.
man-
Good luck with the show.
A man
We'll
of
be
exquisite
listening.
taste.
Oh, he is.
Okay, thank you, Jared. And thank you all for listening to another edition of
Thank
Boston
you,
Public Radio, and to people that came down here at the Boston Public
Thank you.
Library. And keep up with us 24/7 way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, for Meet the Press host Chuck Todd is going to join us, and we are on his Toddcast, Jim and I. It's up right now. Former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral is going to be with us. Former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Revel, current Boston Globe film critic Odie Henderson is going to tell us about the summer movies, what we should see, what we shouldn't. A reminder, again, we flipped the tables for a change. And again, our extended conversation with Chuck Todd on this podcast, the Chuck Toddcast, is now available at thechucktoddcast.com.
And then text us and let us know what you thought about the hour. I thought it was great.
And at youtube.com, the Chuck Toddcast, also if you want to see it visually, wherever you get your Toddcast, it's on Spotify and all those places. Anyway, thanks to our crew, Zoe Matthews, who is a cat lover. She takes good care of her cats. Or cat. Is it multiple cats or one cat? I think it's one cat.
It's
just the one. Okay. Great cat owner, Aiden Conley, Nicole Garcia, handle loss, additional support from Nia Harmon. Our engineer is John LeClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to the BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Colin Cockrell, Olivia Corsillo, and our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, where they have all those new sandwiches, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Jared and his culture show starts right after we are done here on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in today. Hope you can tune in tomorrow. And stay away from your cat. That would be my advice in terms of the kissing. And have a great afternoon.
Bye.